Chapter 583. After Lei Ren killed the 3 dragon bandits, he looked at the bloody scene in front of him and felt his stomach churn. Ugh, he vomited out the New Year's dinner. At this moment, the dragon bandits in the cave heard the fighting sounds outside. They felt that something was wrong and stood out one by one. Among these dragon bandits, the one with the highest realm was a rank 5 evolved dragon. There were also 5 rank 1 and 2 evolved dragons. The remaining 40 or so were all rank 8 and 9 ordinary dragons. They came outside the cave. They saw 2 people standing outside the cave. A guy in black clothes was standing not far away, looking at them calmly. The other guy was covered in blood and was bent over, vomiting nonstop. Not far away from his feet, there were 3 piles of blurred flesh. They immediately understood what had happened. "How dare you kill my brother, you're courting death." One of the Type 1 evolved dragons roared and pounced towards Lei Ren. Lei Ren was vomiting and didn't even have time to wipe his mouth. But when he heard the rank 1 evolved dragon pouncing over, his right arm instantly transformed into a dragon claw. At the same time, the dragon claw contained the power of lightning. Whoosh! With one strike, the rank 1 evolved dragon was directly split into 2 from head to toe. When he tried to heal himself, Lei Ren's sharp claws waved and turned him into meat paste in a short time. This time he didn't vomit again. He roared at the other dragon bandits like a madman. "Come on!" The lower-level dragon bandits all looked at each other. What a joke! A rank 1 evolved dragon was instantly killed by a claw. If they still went up, wouldn't they be courting death? That bandit leader was the strongest rank 5 evolved dragon among these dragon bandits. When he saw this scene, his anger rushed to the top of his head. Preposterous. Die for me. As he said that, a flame sword condensed in his right hand and directly pierced at Lei Ren. Although Lei Ren was 3 ranks lower than him, he was a thunder attribute dragon after all. In terms of speed, he was already comparable to the bandit leader. He dodged this attack and condensed lightning in his right hand. However, his lightning didn't condense into a form. Instead, it looked very messy. The bandit leader snorted coldly. Most people would panic when they encountered a thunder attribute dragon. After all, the thunder attribute was known for its high explosive power and destructive power. However, he had a wealth of combat experience. He knew the weakness of the thunder attribute. Its energy was unstable, and it was difficult to condense and take form. This prevented the lightning attribute energy from unleashing its full power. Therefore, his flaming sword did not stop and continued to stab at Lei Ren's vital points. City Lord's mansion. Due to the obstruction of the forest, Madame Lei and Lei Ming were unable to see what their son and Senior Mo were doing in the forest. They were all a little anxious. The bandit leader's attacks were extremely fierce. While Lei Ren was in the process of condensing the lightning attribute energy, he did not have the time to release it. At this time, Lei Ren had already jumped out of the forest in order to avoid that guy's attack. The bandit leader chased after them in the air. Madame Lei's heart skipped a beat when she saw her son being attacked so fiercely by a fire attribute giant dragon. Lei Ming's heart trembled. Even the Class 3 or Class 4 dragons under his command might not be able to withstand such a violent attack. However, at this time, he was too far away to help. He could only comfort his wife and himself. "With Senior Mo by my side, my son will be fine." At this moment, the 2 of them were constantly moving in the air. It seemed that Lei Ren could only parry and had no strength to fight back. The dragon bandits below also jumped onto the branches and watched the battle in the air. Seeing that their boss was completely suppressing that guy and was about to take him down in minutes, they raised their fists and shouted, "Kid, you dare to challenge our boss? Aren't you courting death? This guy's level is at most Class 2 or Class 3. He actually dared to challenge our boss 2 or 3 levels above him. There's a saying that a newborn calf is not afraid of a dragon. It's probably referring to this guy. He doesn't know the immensity of heaven and earth. This guy, he can't even condense his energy and actually dares to challenge our boss. He's simply tired of living." Just as they were discussing in the sky, the unstable lightning attribute energy in Lei Ren's hand suddenly swung at the bandit leader. However, it was unknown whether it was because the lightning attribute energy was too unstable, or because this guy was too weak. Under this attack, the the lightning attribute energy did not hit at all. Instead, it flew past Lei Ren's body and flew directly into the sky. The dragon bandits below could not help but laugh. This guy is here to be funny, isn't he? He's not just funny. I don't know where this funny guy came from. He saw that we're not having any fun hiding in the deep mountains and forests, so he's here to relieve our boredom. Seeing this scene, the bandit leader could not help but laugh. A kid like you dares to challenge the heroes of our Dragon Gate Mountain? However, at this moment, everyone was stunned. After the lightning attribute energy was swung out, it actually quickly expanded in the sky. Then it condensed into a lightning attribute dragon. This lightning attribute dragon was 100 meters long and was surrounded by lightning. It looked extremely powerful. Especially when it appeared, a few clouds in the sky seemed to be faintly stirred. The bandit leader's heart skipped a beat. This is before the thought could finish flashing through his mind. The dragon in the sky suddenly swooped down at him. The bandit leader knew that this was not good and was about to dodge. However, that dragon was a lightning attribute dragon. Its speed was far faster than any other dragon. Almost instantly, it blasted onto the bandit leader. A glaring blue-white light instantly lit up. Dozens of lightning bolts spread out from the bandit leader's body and blasted onto the dragon bandits on the tree below. Crack, crack, crack. Almost every tree that the dragon bandits were on was directly split into two and caught on fire. These dragon bandits were all struck to the ground. As for the bandit leader in the sky, he was like a black stone that had been burned into black smoke and fell diagonally from the sky with black smoke. The bandit leader was directly killed and did not get up again. As for the other dragon bandits, although they were still breathing, they were not breathing anymore. With one attack, an opponent that was 3 ranks higher was instantly killed. When Madame Lei and Lei Ming saw this scene, they were greatly shocked. Their son was already so strong. Although they had watched their son being trained by Senior Mo for the past few months, they also knew that the power of this move was extremely strong. However, when their son really used this move and killed an opponent that was 3 ranks higher than him, the couple still felt that it was unbelievable. Especially when dealing with a star beast cub and a dragon were 2 completely different concepts. A star beast cub's self-healing ability was not as strong as a dragon's. It was really very difficult to kill a giant dragon. Sometimes, the speed at which you hurt it might not be as fast as its self-healing speed. And now, their son had instantly killed an opponent that was 3 ranks higher than him with one attack. While they were shocked, they were also very grateful to Immortal. Chapter 584. Lei Ren's performance shocked both his parents. Just 3 months ago, their son was still a good-for-nothing who needed bodyguards to follow him everywhere, and only knew how to bully others with numbers. Now that 3 months had passed, their son could actually kill an opponent who was 3 levels above him in one strike. And it wasn't just an instant kill. He could even bully others with fewer people. The bandit leader was instantly killed by their son's attack. And the rest of the dragon bandits were all knocked to the ground. All of them were rolling and screaming. And their son's huge change was all because of Mo Qianqian. The 2 of them only felt that they would never be able to repay Mo Qianqian's kindness in their lives. It wasn't just them. Even Lei Ren himself was shocked. He had just mastered the first transformation of the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations, and was still a little unfamiliar with it. But in the end it was so powerful with one strike. This was really out of his expectations. He couldn't help but look at his hands. After a moment, he raised his head and looked at Immortal. Immortal, however, was somewhat resentful. What are you waiting for? Wait for them to get up and beat you up? Lei Ren's energy was completely exhausted after that strike. Although he still had stamina, his body was very weak. But Immortal had no intention of helping him. He could only grit his teeth and force his weak body to the side of a dragon bandit. No. Because the dragon bandit was struck by lightning energy, his cells were greatly damaged. He couldn't even get up. He looked at Lei Ren in horror. His desire to live made him beg for mercy. Please. Don't kill me. Please. I can give you anything. Just don't kill me. Lei Ren used his dragon claws to support himself on the ground. Looking at this person's eyes, he hesitated. Although he was the #1 good-for-nothing in 1,000 miles, he had killed people before. But he had ordered his servants to do it. Before today, he had never killed anyone with his own hands. He had killed 4 just now, but he didn't look them in the eye. Now, facing this dragon bandit who had no strength to resist, looking at his desperate eyes at the last moment of his life, he couldn't bear it. Actually, his nature wasn't bad. It was just that his parents had spoiled him too much since he was young. If he liked something, he would just take it. If he didn't, he would snatch it. In his mind, all of this was natural. Now, facing the desperate eyes of a stranger before his death, the human compassion in his heart was finally awakened. The dragon claw on his right arm slowly lowered. He turned around and looked at Immortal. "Big brother Emo, can you let him go?" Madame Lei, who was watching the live broadcast through the screen, turned her head to Lei Ming and said, "My son is so kind." However, Lei Ren shook his head helplessly. Having been on the battlefield before, he deeply understood that being merciful to the enemy was being cruel to one's comrades. He had seen how many people had killed their comrades because they had been too soft on the enemy. The battlefield was not a charity hall. There was no room for pity for the enemy. When would his foolish son understand this logic? At the same time, he also looked at Immortal. Would Senior Emo be merciful to his enemies? At the scene, Immortal looked at Lei Ren without any objections. The fact that Lei Ren could maintain a little bit of compassion meant that he had not lost his dragon nature. But Immortal had to let him know that mercy was not something that could be used casually. Thinking of this, he shrugged. "Do as you wish." With that, he turned around. At the same time, he moved his mind. Long Nian controlled the hand of the dragon bandit and pulled out a dagger from his waist. The dragon bandit was terrified. It was not him who was moving, but some force controlling his body to move. He shook his head repeatedly. No. However, his body had already gotten up uncontrollably and stabbed towards the dragon bandit. At this moment, Lei Ren turned his head to ask Immortal for instructions. When Madame Lei saw this, she immediately exclaimed, "No." Lei Ming also jumped to his feet in shock. Pooh! The specially refined dagger pierced Lei Ren's heart from the back with a thud. "Ah!" Lei Ren screamed and turned around. At the same time, he was surprised and angry. Why? He had already decided to let him go. Why did he have to harm him? In his anger, his body, which had been exhausted of energy, seemed to be filled with energy in an instant. The dragon claw instantly swept across the dragon bandit's head. Swish! The dragon bandit's head was directly cut into 5 pieces. Although Lei Ren was stabbed, with the tenacious vitality of a giant dragon, as long as this degree of injury did not continue to worsen, it would not be life-threatening. Lei Ren did not wait for the headless body of the dragon bandit to fall to the ground and waved his dragon claws. Swish, 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 swish. The dragon bandit died instantly. In his anger, Lei Ren came to the side of another dragon bandit. "No." In his terror, the dragon bandit uttered a sentence in English. Swish! What answered him was Lei Ren's crazy killing. Another dragon bandit. "You made." Swish! What answered him was still Lei Ren's dragon claws. In just 5 minutes, all 50 of the dragon bandits were killed. Only then did Lei Ren sit weakly among the corpses. He seemed to be a little delirious. Lei Ren pulled out the dagger from his back, and his wound quickly healed. Lei Ren looked at Immortal in confusion. "Why?" Immortal replied, "Because you are enemies. There should be no mercy between enemies. To pity your enemy is to be cruel to yourself. Your mercy to the enemy may cause you to lose your life. Even your friends, your woman, and your parents may be harmed." Lei Ren's eyes seemed to have regained some clarity. Immortal knew that he had understood, so he did not say anything more. Let him think about it carefully. Madame Lei heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that her son was fine. But even so, her heart still ached when her son had been stabbed in the back with a dagger. Her son had probably never been scratched since he was young. When had he ever suffered such a serious injury? But Lei Ming saw the trick at this moment. Senior Emo did it on purpose. Madame Lei was puzzled. On purpose? What do you mean? Lei Ming replied. Those dragon bandits had clearly lost their ability to fight. How could they suddenly attack again? This is very strange. Also, my son's back was facing the dragon bandits, but Senior Mo was facing the dragon bandits. He clearly saw that the dragon bandits were about to attack my son, but he did not warn me. Madame Lei also thought of this and said, "He did it to teach my son a lesson?" Lei Ming replied, "That's right. If it was just a reminder, with my son's personality, he might forget after a few days. But Senior Mo made him hurt and bleed, so he will remember it even more clearly. He will never forget this bloody lesson in his life." Chapter 585. Lei Ming and Madame Lei discovered Mo Shi's intentions. This made the two of them extremely grateful to Mo Shi. "If I were to teach him this, I'm afraid I wouldn't be able to do it in 1,000 or 2 years. But Mr. Mo only used a few seconds to make our son remember this." Madame Lei nodded. "Senior Mo is really an expert." Lei Ming nodded as well. But at the same time, he had a deeper understanding of Mo Shi. Senior Mo didn't seem to care about anything at all. But one must not underestimate his shrewdness because of this. Just from this incident alone, one could see how shrewd he was. Because of this, Lei Ming became even more cautious of Mo Shi. With Senior Mo's shrewdness, if he had any ill intentions towards him, it was very likely that he would be able to see through it. Then the entire Lei family would be finished. Thinking of this, he immediately shouted, "Men! Immediately send an order to the clansmen in Cloud Sea City to treat Senior Mo with extra respect. If anyone dares to have any ill intentions, they will be killed immediately." When the servant heard this, he couldn't help but shudder. Although the patriarch was very strict with the clansmen, he had never said that they would be killed. This time, he actually gave such an order. It was obvious how much the patriarch respected Senior Mo. He had to be careful when dealing with Senior Mo in the future. At the scene, Mo Shi didn't move immediately. Instead, he waited for Lei Ren's energy to fully recover before flying into the air with him. However, their flying speed wasn't fast. Mo Shi was waiting for Lei Ren to fully recover. Although his body had recovered, his mind hadn't. After all, it was his first time killing someone, and he had been stabbed by the enemy when he had already planned to let the enemy go. He definitely wouldn't be able to recover in a short period of time. At this moment, Lei Ren was no longer as cheerful as he usually was. He followed behind Mo Shi in silence. Mo Shi didn't say much to him, and waited for him to recover. Finally, on the second day, Lei Ren recovered a little. He began to take the initiative to speak. On the fourth day, Lei Ren had completely recovered. He was still as rich and imposing as before. He was still as profligate as before. But Mo Shi knew that he had changed. His mentality was much stronger than before. His experience in dealing with enemies was far more abundant than the average student of the academy. He had already experienced life and death, and had experienced blood. He had already killed a few hundred star beasts. Compared to those students, he had already won at the starting line. Finally, Mo Shi's group arrived at Ocean of Cloud City, as expected of the main city of Cloud Sea Star. If it had to be described with a few words, then it would be grand, magnificent, 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 and extraordinary. From afar, it looked like a path that led straight to the clouds. Flying along this path, they passed through the clouds and saw the rolling sea of clouds. A huge city floated above the sea of clouds. This was the main city of Cloud Sea Planet. This reminded Mo Shi of the heavenly palace in Journey to the West that he had seen when he was young. They flew close to the clouds. When they got closer, they noticed that the city was extremely huge. To what extent? It was so huge that even with Mo Shi's eyesight, he couldn't see the end of it. There was already a butler from the Lei clan waiting for them at the city gate that was over 10 kilometers tall and 5 kilometers wide. When he saw Mo Shi and Lei Ren arrive, he quickly flew over to welcome them. Then he brought Mo Shi all the way to the Watermoon Villa by a lake in the city. Every habitable planet had a powerful Star Lord. The place where the Star Lord lived was called the Star Lord Mansion. The Watermoon Villa by the lake wasn't far from the Star Lord Mansion. It could be said that this was the center of the entire city. Every inch of land was worth its weight in gold. Moreover, this was a villa by the lake. It could be said that it was located in the center of the city and wasn't noisy. It was said that just the rent for the villa here was 50,000 dragon coins every month. Ordinary rich families couldn't afford it. Even if they could afford it, they didn't have the means to rent it. Actually, the Lei Ming clan was a little strained to afford it. After all, they had just taken over the two clans' business and needed cash flow. But they couldn't neglect Senior Mo. So they chose a place like this. Moreover, it was close to the academy. Their son could choose to stay in the academy and live here. He could also frequently receive Senior Mo's guidance. So they endured the pain of renting this place. This villa was very big, over 1,000 square meters. A swimming pool and a garden were all basic amenities. Emosher lived here, and no one disturbed him. The next day, the butler brought Lei Ren to the Cloudsea Academy to register. Emosher and Lei Ren had originally set off a month before the start of school. But now, school had already started for 3 months. This meant that Lei Ren had completely missed the opening ceremony and the 2 months of wilderness training. One had to know that the opening ceremony and the 2 months of wilderness training were very important in the eyes of many people. During the opening ceremony, the dragons' levels would be tested. They would be divided into classes according to their levels. If they came late, they would be assigned to the worst class, Class 0. Class 0 meant that they had nothing and couldn't do anything. So they were called Class 0. Class 0's teaching resources were much worse than the other classes. And the 2 months of wilderness training after school started was even more important. Many people called this the first lesson of school. Not only could they learn a lot, but they could also show their strength to their classmates and teachers. If the foundation here was good, it would be very convenient for them in the future. Lei Ren missed this and could only report to Class 0. The butler sent him to Class 0 and left the academy. Lei Ren entered the classroom. There weren't many people in the classroom, about 20 or so. He glanced around and saw that there were only empty seats at the back. He immediately went to the back and sat down. Many classes with bad morals had a tradition of bullying new students. Class 0 was no exception. Because their levels were relatively low during the level test, most of them were only rank 1 evolved dragons. So they were assigned here. The Tier 1 dragons all had mocking smiles on their faces at this moment. They came to Lei Ren's side and surrounded him. "You're the guy who didn't report for school and skipped 2 months of classes, right? You're quite arrogant," a yellow-haired dragon said. Lei Ren glanced at them and chuckled. "So what if I am?" The yellow-haired dragon also laughed. "If you are, kneel down and kowtow to us 3 times. When you see us in the future, call us Big Brother, understand?" Lei Ren also looked at these people with great interest. "What if I say no?" The yellow-haired dragon nodded. "Interesting. Then I'll tell you the answer now." Then he nodded to the people around him. The dragons immediately reached out and pressed Lei Ren's head. They wanted to hit Lei Ren's head on the table. However, before their hands could touch Lei Ren's hair, bang 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 bang, the 5 dragons smashed the windows and flew out of the window. They landed at the feet of the teacher who had just arrived for class. Chapter 586. Crash, crash, crash. The sound of 3 windows shattering could be heard. 5 figures flew out of the window. The other 17 students in the class were waiting to watch a good show. But when they saw this scene, they all stood up. They looked at Lei Ren in shock. Lei Ren was satisfied with their expressions and nodded. He stretched out his right hand and tapped the ground with his index finger. "In this class," he pointed at himself with his thumb, "I'm the boss from now on." All the students were stunned. They looked at the 5 students who had just gotten up. Among the 5 of them, the yellow-haired one was the highest. He was a rank 2 evolved dragon. He was the boss of the class. But now, someone took the lead and shouted, "Bo! Boss!" With someone taking the lead, the rest all followed suit. "Boss! Boss! Boss!" Lei Ren nodded in satisfaction and waved his hand. "Let's go, let's go." Everyone returned to their seats. At the same time, the Class 0's instructor, Yu Ran, was a little late for class. He was hurrying over. But at this moment, there were a few rustling sounds. Then 5 figures flew out of the sky. They just happened to fly under her feet. She couldn't help but be stunned. These were the 5 tyrants of the class. What was going on today? But no matter what, these 5 guys must have caused trouble. Anger surged in her heart. You 5 are courting death. As she spoke, she waved her energy. The 5 guys were involuntarily sent flying hundreds of meters into the air. A moment later, they screamed and fell from the sky. Boom, 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 boom. The 5 of them all crashed to the ground. In the distance, the teaching director saw the 5 students in the school uniform flying in the air. He shook his head helplessly. Instructor Yu was teaching the students a lesson again. Instructor Yu was young and beautiful. She was passionate about people. If you only saw her at first glance, she would definitely be a dream girl. But in the school, not a single instructor chased after her. Because her temper wasn't good and she was quite violent. Just like now, throwing students hundreds of meters into the air, and then throwing them back down was nothing out of the ordinary for her. Who would dare to chase after such an instructor? But then again, only a teacher like her would be able to keep Class 0 in check. After Yu Yanran finished dealing with the yellow-haired guy and his gang, she stormed into the classroom. After the other guys got up, they didn't dare to complain, and went to the classroom one after another. Everyone thought that the biggest bully in Class 0 was Huang Mao. Actually, very few people knew that Yu Yanran was the biggest bully in Class 0. When Yu Yanran entered the classroom, the originally noisy classroom suddenly became solemn. Yu Yanran glanced at the dozen or so students in the classroom. In the end, his gaze fell on the newcomer Lei Run. Who did it? She stared at Lei Run intently. Lei Run had been a playboy since he was young, so he didn't care about her. He said directly, "They wanted to bully me, but in the end, I bullied them instead. Is there a problem?" Yu Yanran looked at Lei Run, and snorted coldly in her heart. It seemed that this little fellow was also a troublemaker. You came at the right time. I specialize in dealing with troublesome people. Thinking of this, she strode over to Lei Run with her slender legs. It's not that there's a problem, it's that you're in trouble, big trouble. As she spoke, her right hand reached out to grab Lei Run's shoulder. Lei Run subconsciously dodged, easily dodging the claw. The students in the class were shocked. Teacher Yu was a rank 4 giant dragon. Moreover, she used a surprise attack. This was her usual method. Among the students in the class, whether male or female, which one of them hadn't suffered at her hands before? No, it wasn't a loss, but a miserable defeat. This newcomer was at most a rank 2 giant dragon. Moreover, he had caused such a big trouble the moment he arrived. When Teacher Yu was angry, even if she didn't use her full strength, she would at least use 30 to 50% of her strength. Even if it was 30 to 50% of her strength, the students wouldn't be able to withstand it. She didn't expect that this newcomer would be able to dodge it so easily. Yu Yanran was also slightly surprised. However, with her violent temper, this little surprise quickly turned into anger. Her right arm turned into a flaming dragon claw, and chopped down at Lei Run. Lei Run's right arm also turned into a dragon claw with lightning coiling around it. He dodged the dragon claw in an instant. With a strange twist of his body, he appeared behind Yu Yanran. At the same time, his foot also kicked towards Yu Yanran's back without any hesitation. Yu Yanran had a violent temper, but Lei Run didn't have a good temper either. Yu Yanran had never seen such a nimble movement before. She couldn't dodge at all. She only had time to turn around and cross her arms in front of her body. Bang! An impact force suddenly came. Yu Yanran immediately retreated. The tables and chairs in the classroom were knocked over. The group of students quickly jumped up to prevent themselves from being affected. At the same time, they looked at Lei Run with extreme surprise. This guy's strength was so strong? Not to mention that he was late for school by a few months. The first lesson was to hit a student and a teacher. This was going to turn the sky upside down. Yu Yanran's pretty eyes were filled with anger as she roared. "Brat, you're courting death." After saying that, a fiery red energy condensed into a flaming giant hammer in her right hand. There were also dozens of thick and hard spikes on the hammer. This was Yu Yanran's weapon. Lei Run didn't hold back. "Since young, I was the one who bullied others. No one dared to bully me. How could I be bullied by a woman now?" Above the right claw, streaks of lightning continuously crackled. In the previous 2 rounds, he had already felt the strength of this woman. She was only a rank 4 evolved dragon. And if she went all out, killing a rank 5 evolved dragon would be a cinch. How could he be afraid of this woman? When the two of them were at daggers drawn, an old man who looked to be in his 60s passed by the door. Seeing the situation inside, he helplessly shook his head. Teacher, you should also restrain your fiery temper. After saying that, an invisible long way brazenly spread out. Yu Yanran and Lei Run were suppressed by this long way. The two of them suddenly felt an inexplicable chill from the bottom of their hearts. The energy in their hands also quickly disappeared. Yu Yanran turned to look at the old man and said, Dean, I'm educating students. It's not good for you to suddenly intervene like this. The old man who was called the dean glanced at Lei Run, and then looked at Yu Yanran. He couldn't help but shake his head and said, Education also needs to pay attention to the method. If you act rashly, it will only make their rebellious heart stronger. After saying that, he no longer paid attention to Yu Yanran, and slowly left. At this time, the dean's unspoken words were, If I don't intervene, I'm afraid you will be beaten to death. That guy is not as simple as you see on the surface. Chapter 587. After the dean left, Yu Yanran raised her eyebrows, still unwilling to let go. She took 3 steps with her slender legs and arrived in front of Lei Run. She stared at Lei Run with fire in her eyes. An ordinary student would have panicked when being stared at by a teacher like this. But Lei Run had been fighting with those star beast cubs in the forest for several months. Why would he be afraid of a woman's gaze? He raised his head and stared at the woman who was half a head taller than him. The atmosphere between the two was tense again. The students in the class were so scared that they didn't dare to speak. Even the yellow-haired guy and the other 4 were standing quietly by the wall, not daring to move. The two stared at each other for more than 10 seconds. Finally, Yu Yanran burst into laughter. Ha ha ha. Kid good, I like you. What's your name? Everyone was stunned. This turn of events was a bit sudden. The yellow-haired guy and the others also opened their eyes wide. It turned out that the teacher liked this. If they had known earlier, they would have done the same. They wouldn't have been scolded like dogs by the teacher now. However, they quickly rejected their own thoughts. The teacher liked this, but you had to have the strength to do so. Otherwise, the teacher would probably send you flying out of the window. How could they play this game? Lei Ren was also full of question marks. What's wrong with this woman? So strange. But since he knew that she was a teacher, and her attitude was so good, if he continued to ignore her, it would be a bit unreasonable. He immediately replied, Lei Run. Yu Yanran couldn't help but laugh. Lei Run? This name is very shocking. From now on, you'll be my confidant. In this school, if anyone bullies you, just tell them my name, I'll protect you. Study hard, I have high hopes for you. Lei Ren's face showed a somewhat stiff smile. What confidant? What protect you? Why did it sound like the language of street gangsters? Could it be that this tutor was a gangster? Yu Yanran patted Lei Ren's shoulder and said, Sit down and tell me. Why did you come 3 months late? Lei Ren smiled bitterly and shook his head. Because something happened at home. He didn't want to tell her that he had been training in the forest with Brother Mo for 4 months. Yu Yanran nodded. And it doesn't matter if you don't want to say it. 3 days later, it will be the mock exam for the first years of our academy. When the other students in the class heard the words mock exam, their expressions turned gloomy. The so-called test was because some people among the dragons had suggested that levels did not represent combat power. Therefore, when they entered the school, after their grades were tested and they were divided into classes, there was also a mock exam. The classes that performed outstandingly in the mock exam would be able to obtain more resources. Although level didn't represent combat power, 90% of the time, it did. During the entrance exam, Class 0 was the worst class in the entire first grade. Naturally, their combat strength was the weakest. What would they use to compete with the other classes in the mock exam? And if they didn't get a good ranking, the teaching resources they would receive would definitely be the worst. But these people did not include Lei Ren. Lei Ren glanced at these people and shook his head. I don't care if it's a mock test or a mock test, I'm going to get first place. All the students looked at Lei Ren in surprise. Getting first place in the mock exam was already bearable, but what the hell was a mock test? Yu Yanran patted Emosher's shoulder and gave him a thumbs up. Good. That's exactly what I want. PFFF. Many of the students present almost spat out. Instructor, do you think it's appropriate for an instructor to call himself this old lady in front of so many students? In the next 2 days, Class 0 was much more peaceful. Because Lei Ren had displayed extraordinary strength on his first day at the academy, the students of Class 0 naturally regarded him as their boss. Even that yellow-haired student regarded Lei Ren as his boss. At this moment, Emosher was not in a position to cause trouble. At the very least, it wouldn't be too late to cause trouble after he understood the entire planet and the entire Myriad Dragon starfield. From what he knew, the entire Myriad Dragon starfield had a total of 3,600 planets with life. It was divided into the east, the Eastern Imperial region, 650 planets with life. The west, the Western Flame region, 650 planets with life. The south, the Southern Ming region, 650 planets with life. The north, the Big Dipper region, 650 planets with life. The largest region was the Central Starfield, with a total of 999 planets with life. Some people might think, doesn't this add up to 3,599 planets with life? There's still one planet left. Emosher also wondered. However, he couldn't find any explanation on the internet. It seemed that 3,600 was an imaginary number. If you took it seriously, you would lose. While Emosher was studying the entire Myriad Dragon starfield, Shanghai Academy's first-year mock exam had begun. All first-year students had to participate in the mock exam. Everyone's student number would be used to draw lots. There were a total of 7 first-year classes. The students of Class 1 had the best foundation. In the first 23 matches, they had won all their matches. The second year's results were second. Class 5 was a dark horse, ahead of Classes 3 and 4. The worst was of course Class 0. They had basically all failed in the previous matches. Instructor Yu Yanran shook her head repeatedly. Although she had a bad temper, the instructors of those classes didn't dare to make fun of her. However, when she saw the smiles on the instructors' faces, she couldn't help but feel angry. Naturally, she didn't treat the students in her class well. In fact, the students of Class 0 felt wronged in their hearts. Their levels were low during the test, and now they were taught a lesson. Moreover, they had to bear the ridicule of the other classes. They were angry, but they didn't know who to vent it on. It wasn't until 11 o'clock that Lei Ren went on stage. His opponent was Class 2's Shui Miao. Shui Miao was a water-type dragon. Although she was only a rank 1 evolved dragon, her control of water-type energy had reached the point of perfection. It was said that her strength was definitely at the top of Class 2. In Class 2, she was the big sister. When she went on stage, the students of Class 2 shouted loudly. One had to know that every one of them was an evolved dragon. Their shouts were terrifying. If this had happened on Earth, this shout would probably have scared many people to the point of peeing their pants. When Lei Ren went on stage, the students of Class 0 were also shouting, but after all, they were much weaker. Although Lei Ren had fought to a draw with the instructors had definitely held back. And when Lei Ren went against the students of other classes, they wouldn't hold back at all. Therefore, the students of Class 0 were a little nervous. On the other hand, Yu Yanran's gaze swept across the instructors. She was already looking forward to it. She was waiting to watch a good show. Chapter 588. In the entire first grade, Class 0 was the only one who hadn't won a single match. The entire school was laughing at Class 0. Although none of the teachers laughed at Yu Yanran, they didn't think much of Class 0. At this moment, Lei Ren finally stepped onto the stage. Amidst the sparse cheers of the students below the stage, he faced Shui Miao, who was seated opposite him. Shui Miao was also a proud and arrogant person. Although she was only at the first rank, her battle strength had increased over the past 2 months. She could easily defeat opponents at the 3rd rank. Many teachers were optimistic that she would take the top 3 in this mock exam. Shui Miao faced Lei Ren and sneered, "Let's begin." Bang. As soon as her voice fell, she was sent flying. She flew far away from the stage. Her blue dress was already covered in dust. The fairy who had been floating like an immortal was now directly smashed into the dust. Whoosh! The thousands of students in the audience were in an uproar. One move. This guy defeated Shui Miao in one move. Damn, he's too strong. It's too fast. It's really too fast. I didn't even see what happened. Lei Ren retracted his fist and looked at the incredulous Shui Miao who had just gotten up. He cupped his fists and said, "Thank you for letting me win." Shui Miao had never suffered such a great humiliation. Since she was young, she had been the apple of everyone's eye. Because of her beauty, she was the goddess in the hearts of all the boys. Wherever she went, she was doted on. But now, she met such a guy who blasted her out of the stage with one punch. She was in such a sorry state. How could she bear it? This guy is so ruthless. He's really ruthless. Some students couldn't help but exclaim. Yeah, she's such a beautiful girl. How could he do that? Of course, they didn't know that this was all because of Wang Yi's training for Lei Ren. After a few months in the forest, the naive Lei Ren learned that many things in the world weren't as they seemed. Often, the more beautiful something was, the more dangerous it was. The same was true for women. Immortal also let Lei Ren know that once a battle started, there was only one enemy. To be merciful to the enemy was to be cruel to oneself and the people one cared about. Therefore, even if Lei Ren was facing a beautiful woman, he would not show any mercy when he attacked. Some of the mentors at the side were pleasantly surprised by Lei Ren's student. To be able to reach this stage at such a young age, it was truly not simple. However, the tutor of Class 2 was unhappy. Although his temper was not as bad as Yu Yanran's, it was definitely not good either. Originally, their Class 2's Shui Miao was their class's biggest hope of getting into the top 3 this time. In the end, he was punched out of the ring. How could he tolerate this? Referee, this brat launched a sneak attack. Shui Miao wasn't prepared at all. He said, barely suppressing his anger. When Yu Yanran saw this, she couldn't take it anymore. Haha, not ready? She was the one who said it herself. If this isn't being prepared, then what is? Although the teacher of Class 2 had a bad temper, when she saw Yu Yanran's eyebrows furrow, she seemed to be about to flip out. He could only reluctantly swallow his anger. Not only did Yu Yanran have a bad temper, she also had a strong background. Not to mention a small tutor like him. Even if the dean provoked Yu Yanran, as long as Yu Yanran said a word, the dean would probably suffer. Thinking of this, he flicked his sleeves and snorted coldly before returning to his seat. In the following battles, Lei Ren basically defeated his opponents with a single punch. He defeated the strongest of Class 3, Class 4, Class 5, Class 6, and Class 7 in a row. He advanced into the finals. In the finals, his opponent was Class 1's Poison Dragon, Du Faidu. This Du Faidu was very good at using poison. Previously, many experts were defeated by his poison. Many dragons' expressions changed when they heard about Du Faidu. Moreover, Du Faidu was the only rank 4 dragon among the first years. Facing such a guy, the other dragons could only flee. However, Lei Ren was not afraid at all. After all, he had learned how to deal with poison-type creatures from Immortal. Soon, the competition began. Almost half of the students were cheering for Du Faidu. As for Lei Ren, the cheers were much softer. When the referee gestured for the start of the competition, Missouri sure arrived behind Du Faidu at lightning speed. Then he threw a punch. Bang! Du Faidu immediately flew to the side. Once again, he flew out of the arena. When everyone present saw this scene, they were all shocked by Lei Ren's performance. A rank 2 dragon had instantly killed a rank 4 dragon. Moreover, it was Du Faidu, who was the strongest among the first years and had the highest chance of winning first place. Just how strong was this guy? All of the instructors present were shocked. A moment later, a tutor said, "With the combat strength this guy displayed, I'm afraid he's even stronger than some of our tutors." After saying this, the tutor felt that it was a little ridiculous. In the academy, some genius students in the upper grades were stronger than many of the teachers. This was very normal. After all, most of the tutors in the academy were around rank 5 evolved dragons. But how could a normal first-year student be stronger than a fifth-rank instructor? Was this a F***king joke? Actually, they had never seen Lei Ren instantly kill a rank 5 bandit leader. That was a real instant kill. While he was still in shock, the dean said to a handsome male instructor with long hair beside him, "That's right. Tutor Jean, you're one of the most outstanding tutors in our academy. What do you think of this guy?" Tutor Jean nodded. "And he's a promising talent. Unfortunately, he's a little arrogant. If he's guided, he'll definitely become a great talent in the future." "Then, Tutor Jean, are you interested in teaching him?" the dean asked. Tutor Jean waved his hand. "Forget it. You want me to snatch him from Tutor you? I don't have the guts." The dean laughed and said, "I'll talk to Tutor you. We can't let such a good seedling go to waste." Tutor Jean still shook his head. "Forget it. I saw this guy's hand movements and battle awareness. It's obvious that someone specially trained him. Since he has an expert behind him, we don't need to get involved. Maybe he just came to our academy to get a diploma." The dean pondered for a moment and said, "You're right. Then we won't get involved. But I don't know who trained him. To be able to train this guy like this, that person must be extraordinary. If there's a chance, I'd like to get to know him." Chapter 589. Lei Ren won first place and won a large amount of teaching resources for Class 0. According to the rules, every student in the class that won first place was given an individual cultivation room. These cultivation rooms were filled with all kinds of black technology related to cultivation. For example, the Star Brain could plan a cultivation plan according to the strength of each dragon's cells. There was also a device that could detect the gap between cells and calculate the energy capacity of each cell. There was also a variety of medicines distributed every month. This made the students of Class 0 go wild with joy. They didn't have the qualifications to have these things. It was Lei Ren who fought for them. Therefore, all the students were willing to call Lei Ren boss. Just as the 23 students of Class 0 were about to go wild with joy, Instructor Yu walked into the room. The other students hurriedly returned to their seats with solemn expressions. Only Lei Ren still had a smile on his face. Yu Yanran was very fond of Lei Ren. "Lei Ren, you've brought glory to our class today. You've made this teacher raise my head in front of those old guys. If you have any problems in the future, feel free to tell this teacher. As long as this teacher can help, I'll definitely help." The way she spoke didn't sound like a teacher at all. Instead, she sounded more like a gangster boss. Then he asked, "That's right. Judging from your fighting techniques and combat awareness, there should be another expert teaching you." Lei Ren nodded. "Yes." Yu Yanran was curious. "I'm very curious. What kind of expert can teach a genius like you? Are you interested in introducing us?" Lei Ren was about to speak when the teaching director came in. He was a bald old man. He said to Yu Yanran, "Teacher Yu, I have a few words to say to Lei Ren. Is it convenient now?" Yu Yanran nodded. "Of course it's convenient." The teaching director waved at Lei Ren, and the two walked out of the classroom. Yu Yanran put on a righteous expression and didn't want to interfere. But as soon as the two walked out of the classroom, Yu Yanran's ears perked up and she quietly listened to their conversation. She heard the teaching director ask, "Student Lei Ren, right? Congratulations on getting first place in today's mock exam." Lei Ren nodded. "Yes." The teaching director asked again. "You should have an expert teaching you, right?" Lei Ren nodded again. At the same time, he admired Mo Sure even more. These mentors could tell that Big Brother Mo was an expert from their own skills. This showed how strong Big Brother Mo was. He nodded again. "Yes." The dean asked again. "Then can you introduce him to me? I admire him a lot." Just as he said this, Yu Yanran had already walked out of the classroom. Her face was filled with curiosity and anticipation. "I also want to meet those experts." Lei Ren pondered for a moment and said, "How about this? I'll go back today and ask if he's willing to meet you." The two instructors were speechless. "You look at me, I look at you." The expressions on their faces were somewhat strange. The instructors of the academy, and especially the instructors of Ocean of Clouds Academy, possessed an extremely high status in society. No matter how weak the instructor's strength was, so long as he said he was an instructor of Ocean of Clouds Academy, then everyone would feel deep veneration towards him. After all, the Ocean of Clouds Academy was the strongest academy on Cloudsea Star. It was just like on Earth. When people heard that there was a professor from Peking University or Tsinghua University, they would definitely be knowledgeable and would naturally be respected. Many people on Cloudsea Star took pride in knowing the instructors of Cloudsea Academy. But this Lei Ren, 2 instructors from Ocean of Clouds Academy, took the initiative to meet the person behind you. And you actually said something about going back and asking if he was willing to meet us. If the 2 of them knew that the expert behind Lei Ren was a super-evolved giant dragon, they probably wouldn't think this way. In the entire Cloudsea Star, there weren't many super-evolved giant dragons. And there were only 70 or 80 super-evolved giant dragons like Immortal in the entire Cloudsea Star. If Immortal revealed his true strength, there wouldn't be any force on Cloudsea Star that wouldn't want to befriend Immortal. It was just that Immortal was more low-key and didn't want to reveal his true strength. Hearing Immortal say this, the 2 instructors could only nod. All right then. Go back today and ask. We'll wait for your reply tomorrow morning. That afternoon, Lei Ren returned to the lakeside villa. With a happy expression, he said, "Big brother Emo, guess what rank I got in today's mock exam?" Immortal couldn't be bothered with him. Go ahead. First. Lei Ren excitedly jumped onto the stone table in the courtyard and stretched out a finger. First. There are 7 classes in the entire grade, 150 people, and I'm first. Immortal continued to look down at the chess pieces on the table as he casually said, "Oh." Lei Ren asked doubtfully, "Big brother Emo, why don't you look excited that I got first? Why don't I call a few girls over to accompany you tonight?" Only then did Immortal raise his head and roll his eyes at Lei Ren. "I've taught you so much. If you can't even get first place in the first grade, wouldn't you be too useless?" Lei Ren shook his head speechlessly. "Can't you encourage me? You only know how to attack me. But what you said makes sense. How about this? My goal is to defeat all my opponents in the final exam in 2 months and get first place among all the students in the academy. What do you think?" Immortal sighed helplessly. Sigh, mud can't be applied to a wall. Lei Ren was speechless again. One had to know that the academy had a total of 6 grades. 1,000 students. Each grade had to study for 10 years before they could move on to the next grade. The highest grade, the 6th grade, had already studied in the academy for more than 50 years. Their strength also far exceeded that of the first grade students. Some of the students' strength had even surpassed some of the teachers. Now that Lei Ren had just entered the academy and said that he wanted to get first place in the entire academy, Immortal was actually not satisfied. "Big brother Emo, you can't let me challenge the teachers, right?" This time, Immortal placed a chess piece on the board and said, "Exactly." Ha! Lei Ren was even more surprised. Hey, big brother Emo, I know that I have potential. I know that I'm very awesome. But you want me, a freshman who just entered the academy, to challenge the teachers? Isn't this too ridiculous?" Immortal chuckled. "With an expert like me teaching you, if you don't even have the strength to defeat the teachers in your academy, then how useless are you?" Lei Ren. Immortal continued. "I want you to be able to challenge all the teachers in the final exam in 2 months, including your academy's teaching director, who is a level 10 evolved dragon." Lei Ren spat out. The teaching director was a level 10 dragon, the same level as his father. You want me to challenge him in 2 months' time? What kind of joke was this? Chapter 590. Seeing that Lei Ren did not believe him, Immortal shook his head and said, "I will pass the second transformation of the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations to you. You will learn it within 2 months. And as you continue to practice the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations, your level should be able to rise by 1 within 2 months. At that time, wouldn't it be easy for you, who is at the 3rd stage, to challenge the 10th stage Dean?" Puffed. Lei Ren spat out once again. A 3rd stage challenge, a 10th stage? A 7th stage challenge? Only you can say that. However, after witnessing the power of the first transformation of the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations, he was rather confident in the power of the second transformation. Perhaps he could really challenge the dean at that time. Seeing that Wang Yi did not seem to be joking, the gaze in his eyes became fiery. All right, from tomorrow onwards, my goal is to challenge the dean. Emosher shook his head. What do you mean from tomorrow onwards, from today onwards? Lei Ren could not help but smile bitterly. Big brother Mo, I just got first place. Can't you let me relax? I'll call a few girls over tonight. You can also relax. This way, everyone will be happy. Emosher glared at Lei Ren. Lei Ren laughed awkwardly and did not dare to say anything else. Emosher immediately passed the second transformation of the Thunder Dragon to Lei Ren. If he wanted to learn the second transformation of the Thunder Dragon, he would need the cooperation of the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations. Thus, Emosher passed the second transformation of the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations to Lei Ren. Whether it was a cultivation technique or a skill, the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations was a collection of the strengths of everyone. It was the easiest to understand, the easiest to practice, and the most powerful cultivation technique and skill. Many people could understand it at a glance, but almost no one dared to practice it. This was because many of the energy circulation routes in the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations were the opposite of what they had learned in the past. For example, light was an energy storage. What they had learned in the past was to store the energy in the back or the energy sea in the abdomen. However, the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations required energy to be stored in every cell. For example, the method of releasing energy that they had learned in the past was to circulate it from the dantian, through several veins, and finally gather in the hands. However, the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations required the transfer of energy between cells. It's like how sound travels at a different speed in air than it does in solid objects. Solid objects travel faster. For the same reason, the transmission between the cells was faster than the transmission between the meridians that seemed to be unobstructed. This knowledge completely overturned the understanding of the dragons. Therefore, even if the average giant dragon saw it, they would think that it was just a made-up secret manual. If not for Lei Ren's complete trust in Emosher, he would not have dared to practice this Thunder Dragon's 9 transformations. Lei Ren was extremely excited. Thank you, Brother Mo. After saying that, he hurried back to his room to practice. But before he left, he suddenly remembered something. He then turned around and said, Big Brother Mo, when I was fighting today, both Teacher Yu and the teaching director could tell that I had an expert guiding me from behind. That's why they wanted to meet you. Emosher pretended to be in a difficult position. I'm used to being free and unfettered, so I don't want to know too many people. The more people you know, the more trouble there will be. Lei Ren saw that Emosher was in a difficult position and said, Big Brother Mo, if you're in a difficult position, I'll tell them that you don't want to meet them. Our Teacher Yu is a young and beautiful woman. It's a pity that you don't want to meet them. Emosher pondered for a moment and said, I'm used to being free and unfettered, so I don't want to know too many people. But since they're your teachers, it wouldn't be appropriate if I don't go. How about this? You tell them that I'm willing to meet them tomorrow, and see when they have the time to come here. Lei Ren chuckled. Indeed, even heroes have a weakness for beauties. He did not feel that there was anything wrong with Emosher asking the two of them to come here. One must know that Big Brother Mo was a rank 4 super-evolved giant dragon. But this was only on the surface. Actually, his father had told him that Big Brother Mo's strength had probably reached the level of an ancient giant dragon. Otherwise, he would not have been able to kill more than 300 people from the two family in one move. No matter how high the status of these two teachers was, they were nothing in front of an ancient giant dragon. For Big Brother Mo to meet them was the greatest honor of their lives. Seeing that it was getting late, the two of them returned to their rooms to rest. When it was almost 12 o'clock at night, Emosher said, System sign in. The system's voice sounded frowny face. Special event sign in successful. Sign in event. Disciple defeated all the students of the academy and won first place in the year. Sign in reward. Water Dragon's 9 transformations cultivation method plus skill. Poison Dragon's 9 transformations cultivation method plus skill. Earth Dragon's 9 Transformations Cultivation Method plus Skill. Ice Dragon's 9 Transformations Cultivation Method plus Skill. Wood Dragon's 9 Transformations Cultivation Method plus Skill. This, Mo sure was greatly surprised. He actually received so many 9 transformations with different attributes in one sign-in. Previously, the 9th transformation of the Thunder Dragon's 9 transformations had already shocked him. He did not expect the system to produce so many 9 transformations with different attributes. It seemed that these attributes were the attributes of the opponents that Lei Ren defeated today. With so many cultivation methods, the only one missing was the Golden Dragon's 9 transformations. Moreover, there was a special attribute of the Poison Dragon's 9 transformations. He wondered how terrifying it would be if he cultivated the Poison Dragon's 9 transformations to a certain extent. However, Mo sure currently only had 3 attributes in his body: ice, fire, and lightning. Therefore, he could only cultivate the 9 transformations of the ice, fire, and lightning attributes. Thinking of this, he immediately entered Earth's space. With a thought, he mastered the 9 transformations of the ice and fire attributes. After mastering it, he practiced it in Earth space. In the end, the 9th transformation of the Ice Dragon's 9 transformations froze the entire space into a solid layer of ice. The 9th transformation of the Fire Dragon's 9 transformations turned the entire Earth space into sticky magma. In other words, at least with a single strike, it could reach the level of destroying Earth. Following that, Mo sure learned the other attributes. Although he did not have any other attributes, he had already made a plan. He would think of a way to become a teacher of the academy and take in a group of students. When the time came, the knowledge of the 9 transformations would be useful. He would nurture these students and let them slaughter those dragons. Then, there would be no need for him to make a move at all. His dragon slaying points would continue to increase. If someone could go to the battlefield, that would be even better. One had to know that in the current interstellar war, the number of dragons participating in the war could easily reach millions. Tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dragons could be killed in a single battle. Wouldn't that be great? Lei Ren returned to the academy and told the dean, and Yu Yanran about Mo sure's words. The two of them were slightly angry. Especially Yu Yanran, who directly scolded. "I am a teacher of the Cloud Sea Academy. You want me to visit him? You're giving him face." Chapter 591. When Yu Yanran heard that she was going to pay him a visit, she was furious. "You want me to pay him a visit personally? That's giving him face." The dean was also a little uncomfortable. However, the dean was much calmer. After thinking about it, he said to Lei Ren, "If that's the case, then I'll be free tomorrow afternoon after school. Tell him that I'll pay him a visit then." With the dean's experience, many experts had some eccentricities. There were also many experts who were difficult to get close to. If the person behind Lei Ren was a truly powerful expert, then it was reasonable for him to ask him to pay him a visit. So the next afternoon, the dean came to the lakeside villa. Seeing the environment here, he was first amazed. Even if he was the dean of the academy, he couldn't afford to live here. He couldn't even afford to rent it. The rent of 50,000 dragon coins a month was not something he could afford. It seemed that Lei Ren's family had a strong background and was powerful enough. After entering the door, Mo sure was studying war chess in the courtyard. The dean of teaching looked Mo sure up and down a few times, his face full of surprise. "Lei Ren, are you talking about this, mister?" Lei Ren nodded. "That's right, what's wrong?" The dean frowned. He looks like he didn't finish his sentence. But anyone could tell that he meant that Mo sure didn't look like an expert. Mo sure also looked away from the chessboard and looked at the dean. The dean cupped his hands at Mo sure. "You must be Mr. Mo. You've taught a good disciple." Mo sure smiled. "I was just bored, so I taught him casually." Then the two chatted for about half an hour. In this half an hour, the dean talked about a lot of professional knowledge about cultivation. If it was in the past, Mo sure wouldn't know anything about this knowledge. After all, he didn't need to cultivate. But now, after mastering the various 9 dragon transformations, he could be said to have a lot of knowledge about cultivation at his fingertips. Sometimes, the cultivation methods he talked about were more effective than traditional cultivation methods. The dean of teaching was stunned when he heard that. He couldn't help but look at Immortal up and down again. This person was indeed an expert. Not only was he well versed in all kinds of knowledge regarding the lightning attribute, he was also quite knowledgeable about the other attributes. Moreover, many of his viewpoints were very novel. Although Shifeng had not verified Lei Ren's theory, just by looking at Lei Ren, a Tier 2 evolved dragon had killed a Tier 4 super evolved dragon. To be able to teach such a disciple, it was clear that Mr. Mo's theoretical knowledge was far superior to many of the Academy's instructors. When they were about to leave, the Dean of Teaching asked, "Mr. Mo, if you have the chance, then I wonder if you're willing to become an instructor in our academy." Mosher pondered for a moment before replying. "Since I have nothing to do anyway, it doesn't matter if I go take a look." The dean nodded. "Then I'll go back and discuss it with the dean today." Mosher nodded to send the guests off. The next day was Wednesday, and the academy's instructors had a routine meeting. Other than a few instructors with no duties, the rest of the instructors had to participate. At 8:30, the meeting began, but not everyone had arrived yet. The dean cleared his throat and said, "Then let's begin the meeting." One of the instructors said, "Dean, Teacher Jean hasn't arrived yet." The dean said calmly, "Today's meeting is to inform everyone that Teacher Jean has left our academy to take up a post at Proxima Centauri Academy." All the instructors were quite surprised. Usually, even if an instructor left, it would be after the end of the semester. It was rare for an instructor to leave while still teaching yesterday. The dean's tone was very calm, but the instructors seemed to be able to hear the dean's anger behind this calm tone. The dean continued without hesitation. "You can say that Proxima Centauri Academy came to our academy to poach people and successfully poached Teacher Jean Pontu. We don't have as good a treatment as them, and our academy isn't as famous as Proxima Centauri Academy. He can gain more attention and benefits there." All the instructors fell silent. The dean continued. "Actually, I understand Teacher Jin's choice very well. Proxima Centauri Academy's conditions are much better than ours, and their treatment is better in all aspects. They are also better than our academy in terms of fame and popularity. It's understandable that Teacher Jean chose them. If it were me, I would also choose them." But he suddenly left in the middle of teaching this semester. Who's going to teach their 6th grade class 1? The 6th grade is the graduating class, and these few years are very important to them. It's not something that just anyone can take over. And in such a hurry, it's very difficult for us to find a suitable instructor. At this point, the dean took a deep breath. He continued, "Even if he can't wait until the end of this semester, he should at least wait until we find a suitable instructor to take over their 6th grade class 1. He called me at 8 this morning and said that he won't be coming in the future. He asked me to find time to get someone to pay him this month's salary." At the end of the dean's words, there was obvious anger in his tone. His words also turned into 2 words. "Haha." All the instructors looked at the dean. The dean had always been a very kind person, and he was also a person of few words. But today he said so much in one breath, and even said hee. It was obvious that the dean was really angry. Yu Yanran was instantly furious. Running away in the middle of the semester, and he still has the face to ask for salary? Give him a D*MN. The other instructors also shook their heads. This is too much. How are we going to find a suitable instructor in such a hurry? The 6th grade class 1 is the most outstanding class in the entire academy. Every one of them is a genius, and they're all proud and arrogant people. If we suddenly change a new instructor, I'm afraid we won't be able to control them at all. After a while, the discussion gradually died down. The instructors all fell silent. Some people shook their heads and sighed. Some people secretly cursed Jean Pontu for being shameless. For his own interests, he didn't care about the interests of the academy and the students at all. Such a person didn't deserve to be an instructor. At this time, an instructor surnamed Bing said, "I have a candidate. I have a candidate in mind. He's a recent graduate from Nanming Academy." When he said this, the instructors were a little surprised. Nanming Academy. It's actually Nanming Academy. There were 650 planets with life in the entire Nanming star zone. Among them, the main planet was Nanming Star. And the strongest academy on Nanming Star Zone was Nanming Academy. At the same time, Nanming Academy was also the strongest academy in the entire Nanming Star Zone. The top students who graduated from this academy were basically fought over by the entire Nanming Star Zone. The dean asked, "He's willing to come to our small Yunhai Academy." Chapter 592. The dean asked, "He's willing to come to a small place like ours?" The instructor nodded. Although many forces are fighting for him, he feels that it's best to start from the bottom. It's the best way to train a dragon. These days, he's been looking for such an opportunity. If he can come to our school to teach, he'll be very happy. The dean nodded. Okay, then tell him to come over as soon as possible. I want to meet him. The instructor nodded. Okay, I think he can come tomorrow. At this time, the dean also spoke. I do know an expert who can give it a try. Everyone turned their heads and looked at the dean. The dean asked, "Who?" The dean said, Lei Ren won first place in the freshman mock exam. At that time, everyone thought that he had an expert guiding him. I went to see that expert yesterday. The dean asked, "How was it?" The dean said, "He's indeed an expert. Not only is he familiar with thunder attribute techniques, but he's also very knowledgeable about water, fire, earth, wood, ice, and even poison attribute cultivation knowledge." All the instructors were surprised. That many. It was already very impressive for an ordinary instructor to master cultivation knowledge of 3 attributes. There were probably very few who could master 4 attributes in the entire star field. How could he master cultivation knowledge of 7 attributes? That was too exaggerated. The dean said in surprise, "Master so many attributes? Then he must be an incredible expert." Did he ask him if he was willing to teach? The dean nodded. I asked him. He said that since he had nothing to do, it should be possible. And most importantly, he should be able to control the arrogant 6th-year Class 1. Everyone should have seen how arrogant Lei Ren is during the mock exam. Instructor, you should know best. But when I visited him yesterday, Lei Ren was very obedient in front of him. Lei Ren did whatever he said. So I think he should have no problem controlling those arrogant geniuses of 6th-year Class 1. The dean's eyes lit up. It was one thing to see if an instructor was outstanding and knowledgeable. On the other hand, it was also to see if he could control the students. If he only had profound knowledge, but the students didn't listen to him at all, then what was the point of teaching? Teacher Bing frowned slightly when he saw this. Although the person he recommended was a top student at Nanming Academy, he had to drop out because he had committed a crime. Because he had committed a crime and didn't even have a graduation certificate, it was very difficult for him to find another job. No matter how strong you are, you won't even have the chance to show it. Now that he suddenly had this opportunity, he would be the one to teach the students. If they were taught well, graduation certificates and crimes wouldn't be a problem. After all, teaching qualifications were reviewed once every 5 years. There were still 3 years left before the trial. In these 3 years, he could always find a way to get his graduation certificate while minimizing the impact of his crime. What's more, if he could achieve something in these 3 years, nothing else mattered. But he didn't expect the dean to appear out of nowhere. This was King ridiculous. But there was no other way. The dean had always trusted the teaching director. Moreover, the dean was a good judge of character. Therefore, he couldn't say anything. She only hoped that the person she had recommended, who was her friend's son, would perform better tomorrow. The next day, Emosher slept until almost 11 o'clock before he woke up. After all, he had played too late with Happy last night. After getting up, he looked at the time. He was a little speechless. Sigh. After shaking his head, he began to wash up and eat. When he arrived at the academy, it was almost 11:40. In the academy, the dean was so anxious that he scratched his head. When he finally saw Emosher arrive, he quickly said to Emosher, "Mr. Emo, let's go see the dean now." If we're any later, he might have already gotten off work. Although he didn't say it explicitly, The meaning behind his words was that Emosher came too late. Emosher also scratched his head and said, "I'm sorry. I played chess too late last night, so I woke up late tonight." Soon, the two of them arrived at the dean's office. The dean apologized repeatedly. "Dean, I'm sorry. Mr. Emo had something to do in the morning, so he came a little late." The dean smiled and nodded, then said, "It's okay. Our new instructor has already taken office. I think he taught quite well." As he spoke, he pointed at the air screen in front of him. Emosher and the dean looked at the air screen. On the air screen, a young man was teaching the students below the stage. He spoke in simple terms. It was obvious that he was very skilled. The students in the classroom also listened very seriously. The dean shook his head helplessly. In fact, he felt that with Emosher's level, he would definitely teach better than this young man. However, the dean hated people with a poor sense of time the most. He was 3 hours late for an interview. Who would hire such a person? Emosher also felt a little helpless. Happy was really a femme fatale. If it weren't for her, how could he have played until so late? How could he have woken up so late? However, he missed this opportunity. He would think of another way in the future. Thinking of this, Emosher also shook his head helplessly. "Sorry to disturb you." As he spoke, he turned around and was about to leave. However, at this moment on the screen, the new instructor who was teaching suddenly disappeared under his feet. A circular black hole actually appeared. The next moment, the instructor fell directly into the black hole. He instantly disappeared. A moment later, a black hole suddenly appeared on the ceiling. The instructor fell directly out of the black hole. Crack! He fell directly on the lecture table. The lecture table was smashed into pieces. Then, a vine suddenly stretched out from the ground and wrapped around the instructor. Then it swung with force. The instructor was thrown far out of the window. It turned out that there were students with spatial attributes in class 6-1. They also heard from somewhere about the reason why instructor Jean left. This made them quite disappointed in the academy's instructors. They thought that the instructors were the engineers of their souls who taught and educated people. They didn't expect that these instructors were all despicable people who would do anything for benefits. Therefore, the moment this new instructor entered, he was tricked by them. The dean's eyes lit up when he saw this. He stopped Emosher. Then he said to the dean, "Dean, why is this new instructor?" "Ahem." The dean coughed twice to hide his embarrassment. Then he looked at Emosher and said, "Then let's talk about this Mr. Emo teaching." The dean wanted to laugh in his heart, but he didn't dare to. He turned to Emosher and said, "Mr. Emo, please take a seat." They talked about some cultivation problems with Emosher. Chapter 593. The dean and Emosher talked about some cultivation problems. The more the dean talked, the brighter his eyes became. He thought that the dean was exaggerating. No one could master the cultivation knowledge of 6 attributes at the same time. After all, the cultivation knowledge of each attribute was extremely complicated and varied. Ordinary people were already very talented if they could master one attribute in a short time. It was impossible to master 6 attributes, no matter how talented they were. However, reality proved that Mr. Emo had done it. He really mastered the cultivation knowledge of 6 attributes perfectly. He even mastered more than the dean in many areas. The dean nodded secretly. Although he had talked to Emosher once before, it seemed that every time he heard Emosher talk about cultivation, he would gain something. However, the dean was in a dilemma. "Mr. Emo, can you control these students?" Emosher smiled. "Remove the can." The dean was stunned for a moment before he reacted. "So Mr. Emo is very confident?" Emosher smiled. "Not very, but too confident." The dean heard this and looked at the dean. This Mr. Mo's professional knowledge was indeed very strong. But why did his words seem a little out of tune? However, since he had already come this far, he could only let him give it a try. "Dean, take Mr. Emo to give it a try first." The dean nodded. "Okay." Then he took Emosher to the door of class 6-1. At this moment, the new instructor had already been taken away. As an instructor, it was indeed tragic to be trampled by a student like that. In the classroom, the students were in a mess. Some were dancing with excitement, while others were lying on the table and laughing. There was a wood attribute dragon that directly used energy to condense many flowers, and the entire classroom became a sea of flowers. The dean asked Emosher next to him, "Mr. Emo, are you ready?" Before he finished speaking, Emosher had already walked into the classroom. In the classroom, the students who were in the midst of celebrating were stunned. They looked at Emosher. Emosher had a smile on his face. "Students, I am your new instructor. You can call me Instructor Emo." The students below the stage looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with excitement. A new round of pranks was about to begin. However, just as they made up their minds, they suddenly felt a bone-piercing chill in their hearts. They looked up in horror at the new instructor on the podium. The teacher's face did not change at all. He was still looking at them with a harmless smile. But at this moment, this smile seemed like the smile of a devil to them. He was like a demon that had just crawled out of hell, as if he could tear them apart in the next moment. One had to know that Emosher was now a rank 5 super-evolved giant dragon. Not to mention that he often went to the dragon cave to cultivate Longwei. Even Longwei, a rank 5 super-evolved colossal dragon, was far from what these rank 4, rank 5 and rank 6 students could handle. When Emosher saw that the students had quieted down, he smiled and said, "Aren't you going to greet Mentor Emo?" While the students were trembling in fear, they spoke out one after another. "Hello, Instructor Emo." Outside the door, the dean heard this and heaved a sigh of relief. In the dean's office, when the dean saw this scene, he also looked at Emosher in surprise. How did Emosher make these students listen to him? Could it be Longwei? But that could only be done by a super-evolved colossal dragon, Longwei. Could it be that this ordinary-looking Mr. Emo had actually become a super-evolved colossal dragon? Thinking of this, the dean's gaze was fixed on Emosher on the screen. In the entire academy, only the dean was a super-evolved colossal dragon. If they could have another super-evolved colossal dragon as their instructor, then the Cloud Sea Academy would at least be promoted from a 5th-rate academy to a 4th-rate academy. The Cloud Sea Academy was the best academy on the Cloud Sea Star. But in the entire Nanming region, it was at most a 3rd-rate academy. In the entire 10,000 Dragon Star region, it would be difficult to even become a 5th-rate academy. This instructor Emo could control these students, but it would depend on how well he taught. If he could only control the students and not pass on his knowledge, then he couldn't be considered a good instructor. Emosher looked at these students and pointed at the only girl in the class who didn't make a fuss when he came in. He said, "You, what's your name?" The girl quickly stood up and answered with fear, "I'm called Mu Wanqing." She was usually a little timid, and the students in the class all looked down on her. So she had always felt inferior. Just now, when she was suppressed by Emosher and Longwei, she was even more frightened. Emosher said, "When I came in, you were the only one who didn't make a fuss. How about this? I'll reward you with a breakthrough right away. How about it?" Mu Wanqing was at a loss. Or it could be said that she was too frightened and didn't realize what Emosher was saying. When the other students heard Emosher's words, they all looked at Mu Wanqing in surprise, and then looked at Emosher. Emosher ignored them and said to Mu Wanqing, "Now cultivate by yourself and let me see." Mu Wanqing quickly did as she was told. 5 minutes later, she finished cultivating. She lowered her head and said in a low voice, "Mentor, I finished cultivating." Emosher said, "Cultivate again. When the energy runs through the 2nd cycle, go through the Dragon's Pine Acupoint. When the 4th cycle, go through the Dragon Wing Acupoint. Everything else remains the same." Mu Wanqing looked at Emosher in surprise. When she was cultivating with those mentors, they said that her wood attribute energy must never go through the Dragon Wing Acupoint. Otherwise, she was afraid that she would go crazy. Why did this mentor let her energy go through the Dragon Wing Acupoint? When the rest of the students in the class saw this, they all frowned slightly, because when they cultivated, their energy never went through the Dragon's Pine Acupoint. The mentors said that the Dragon's Pine Acupoint was a useless acupoint. In the hundreds of thousands of years of evolution of giant dragons, this acupoint had been slowly abandoned. It didn't matter whether there was one or not. So when they cultivated, Their energy never went through the Dragon's Pine acupoint. Why did this new mentor let them go through this acupoint as soon as they came in? Did he know how to teach them? However, under Mo Shi's abuse of power just now, none of these students dared to refute. Outside the classroom, the Dean of Teaching was also slightly stunned when he heard Mo Shi's words. How to go through the Dragon's Pine acupoint. This didn't make sense. He quickly turned around and walked towards the classroom door. If something happened to the students while they were cultivating, how would he explain it to the parents? However, after taking 2 steps, he stopped again. Thinking of how Lei Run was trained to such a state, he thought that this mentor Mo should have some ability. In the dean's office, when the dean saw this scene, although he was puzzled, he was not anxious. This newcomer, teacher Mo, should have some skills. Chapter 594. Cloud Sea Academy, Class 6-1. The girl with low self-esteem, Mu Wanqing, was cultivating. She didn't follow the usual energy circulation route. Instead, she followed the circulation route that Mo Shi had just mentioned. The first 2 cycles were normal. During the 3rd cycle, the energy passed through the Dragon Spine acupoint. During the 4th cycle, the energy passed through the Dragon Wing acupoint. When her energy had just passed through the Dragon Wing acupoint, she suddenly felt that all the meridians in her body seemed to have become much smoother. These meridians seemed to be much thicker than before. She hurriedly increased the energy output. 5 minutes later, the aura on her body suddenly rose. A huge wave of air spread out in all directions. It blew over the tables and chairs, causing the nearby students to sway. A moment later, the wave of air receded. Mu Wanqing opened her eyes. She was in disbelief and pleasant surprise. She looked at Mo Shi and said, "Instructor, I broke through and became a rank 4 evolved dragon." After saying that, she still couldn't believe it. Previously, she felt that it would be very difficult for her to break through again. Even if she could break through, it would probably take more than 100 years. Not only did she feel that way, but the instructors in the academy also felt the same way. That was why she had always felt inferior. How could Instructor Mo just say a few words and she broke through? Outside the door, the dean was stunned when he heard this. A few words of guidance and she broke through immediately? This was simply unheard of. Even the instructors of the first-rate schools in the Myriad Dragon Star region couldn't do this. When the dean saw this scene, his face revealed his usual shocked expression. Just 2 simple acupoints allowed a student to break through immediately? No one would believe it. When dragons generally needed dozens or hundreds of years to break through, it was simply a joke to teach someone to break through in 5 minutes. Incredible, incredible, the dean muttered to himself. This instructor Mo must stay no matter what. He was definitely an expert who was much stronger than him. Of course, it was impossible for such an expert to stay in a small place like the Cloud Sea Academy. But even if he only stayed for a period of time, it would be a great fortune for the Cloud Sea Academy. Mo Shi's move instantly stunned all the students present. Mu Wanqing lowered her head and said softly, "Mentor Mo, thank you." Although his voice was very soft, it could be heard that he was grateful from the bottom of his heart. At this time, a tall and muscular student stood up and said in a coarse voice, "Let's go." "Mentor Mo, my name is Tuching Earth City. Please give me some advice. Ever since I entered the academy, I haven't broken through." When he said this, his voice was filled with excitement. Generally, it would take around 100 years for an evolved colossal dragon to break through. However, all those who were able to enter the academy were geniuses. After he entered Ocean of Clouds Academy, he'd been able to break through at least once during the 50-plus years from the 1st grade to the 6th grade. However, ever since he entered the academy, not only had he not broken through even once, the energy in his body had not increased at all. It was as if the energy in his body had been locked by invisible shackles. In the end, he simply gave up on himself, and gave up on cultivating. Anyway, he was just muddling along and getting a graduation certificate. Now that he saw that Instructor Mo could actually help Mu Wanqing break through, it was obvious that he also had great hope. The other students also looked at Mo Shi. "Mentor Mo, please give me some advice." "Mentor Mo, me too. Mentor Mo, I also haven't broken through for 2 days. Please give me some advice again. Get lost, you just broke through the day before yesterday. Why are you here? Mentor Suemo can give you advice, but he can't give me advice. However, Emosure did not immediately agree to them. When it came to students, you couldn't always spoil them. You could do whatever they wanted. Then what would you do if they wanted to ride on your neck and poop in the future? Moreover, among these people, there was a guy with the spatial attribute and a guy with the metal attribute. At present, Emosure didn't know anything about the cultivation of space and metal attributes. Therefore he waved his hand. I'm just your homeroom teacher, not your class instructor. Each attribute has its own instructor. You'd better learn from them. Hearing Emosure's words, the other students were all disappointed. Emosure continued. However, it's not like you don't have a chance to receive my guidance. When the students heard this, they all raised their heads. Emosure continued. Do you all know how to play war chess? When the students heard this, they were all a little confused, but they all nodded. In the 10,000 Dragons Star Zone, war chess was still relatively popular. These students more or less knew a little. Emosure continued. Your temperaments are too weak. Practicing war chess can hone your temperament. I'll give you 10 days to learn war chess from me. When your impetuous heart slowly calm down, I'll give you some guidance in your cultivation. When the students heard this, they felt that it was strange. What did cultivation have to do with war chess? However, when they heard that they had a chance to receive Mentor Mo's guidance, they were all very excited. After all, it was very likely that they would have a chance to break through immediately. In fact, cultivation and war chess had nothing to do with each other. The reason why Emosure said that he would teach them 10 days of war chess had nothing to do with their temperament. According to the system's rules, no matter what he taught someone, as long as they reached 10 days, the system would recognize that person as Emosure's disciple. Therefore, Emosure would teach them 10 days of war chess first. When the time came, they would become Emosure's disciples. At that time, Emosure would have 20 disciples in one go. If he signed in again, he should be able to get some good stuff. It was said that he could also sign in for Metal Attribute and Space Attribute Dragon 9 transformations. This was Emosure's real plan. Therefore, for the next few days, Emosure really taught these students how to play war chess. Although the students' standards varied, no matter how good they were not as good as Emosure's. One had to know that he had once won the runner-up position in a chess competition organized by the city on Earth. Wasn't it easy to teach these students? These days, the dean had been a little confused. Mentor Mo was able to control these students. This made him very satisfied. However, Mentor Mo didn't let these students learn cultivation and various theoretical knowledge from him. Instead, he wanted them to learn war chess from him. This was a little too ridiculous. Even if it was to hone their temperament, this was still really incomprehensible. One had to know that every parent in the 6th grade graduating class hoped that their children could learn more in the academy, so they were very strict with them. If these students went back and said that they were learning war chess from their mentor every day, what would those guys think? Their parents would probably come to the academy soon. Chapter 595. In fact, the dean's worries were not without reason. Some parents of students came to the academy, and it was not just one, but more than 10 parents. They came to the dean's office. Some were aggressive, and some were frowning. They insisted on asking the dean for an explanation. Dean, our child will graduate in 3 years. It was only 3 years. We all hope that he can learn more useful knowledge in the academy. But the new instructor only taught him how to play war chess? Isn't that too ridiculous? Dean, I don't know what kind of magic potion that instructor fed our child. He actually said that the instructor taught them war chess to hone their temperament. What's even more ridiculous is that the instructor can actually guide the students to break through immediately. Yes, since he can guide the students to break through immediately, why can't he guide our daughter? If he can't guide our child to break through, then please teach our child some useful things. Don't play so many tricks. The dean shook his head. Everyone, our Cloud Sea Academy is a famous academy in the entire Cloud Sea planet. We have absolute credibility. In terms of teaching methods, every instructor has their own set of methods. The reason why instructor Mo let the students learn war chess is to hone their temperament. As for the breakthrough you mentioned, it's not nonsense. It's true. I'll show you a video and you'll understand. As he spoke, the dean played the video of Mo guiding Mu Wanqing to break through in 5 minutes. Those people were all shocked when they saw it. This is actually true? But this is just too unbelievable. Even if I see it with my own eyes, I still can't believe it. Dean, I'm not doubting you, but this is too unbelievable. Could it be that this video is photoshopped? The parent who spoke regretted it as soon as he spoke. The instructors of Cloud Sea Academy had an extremely high social status on Cloud Sea Planet. Especially the dean of Cloud Sea Academy. It was said that he was a super-evolved dragon. He was a big shot. Would he be angry with him for speaking to him like that? The dean shook his head and said, I've asked Instructor Mo. I've also asked Teacher Mo. He also said that after 10 days, if the child's temperament has been tempered to a certain level, he will guide that student. As for whether or not the other child would be able to break through, I was also looking forward to it. If any of you still have any doubts, you can come to me when the time comes. We'll know when we have a look. When the parents heard this, they looked at each other. Although they still found it hard to believe, they couldn't say anything else since the dean had already said so. In the end, they all nodded in agreement. Then let's wait and see if they can make a breakthrough in 10 days. Today was Mosher's 10th day as an instructor. These 20 students were officially recognized by the system as Mosher's disciples. That night, Mosher said in his mind, System, accepting 20 disciples can be considered a special event. Sign in for a special event. The system's voice sounded frowny face. Sign in successful. Sign in event, 20 new disciples. Sign in reward. Void Dragon 9 Transformations Skill and Technique, Golden Dragon 9 Transformations Skill and Technique. Mosher was overjoyed. His guess was right. The system had indeed given him these 2 rewards. He immediately entered the space and learned the skills and techniques of the Void Dragon 9 Transformations and the Golden Dragon 9 Transformations. He had already mastered all the theoretical knowledge of the spatial and metal attributes. In this way, Mosher had completely mastered all the theoretical knowledge of the 5 elements: metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. At the same time, he had also mastered all the theoretical knowledge of the 3 special attributes: thunder, poison, and space. He had mastered all the theoretical knowledge of 8 attributes. This was definitely an unprecedented existence in the history of the entire Myriad Dragon Star Zone. In the history of the entire Flaming Origin continent, the one who had mastered the most was a giant dragon known as the King of Chaos. That was a peerless genius. He was born with 2 types of elemental energy. Later, his dragon bloodline mutated twice, allowing him to possess 4 types of elemental energy. Finally, he had a fortuitous encounter and possessed all the 5 elemental energies. Because of this, he spent a lot of effort to study all the theoretical knowledge of the 5 elements. He became a master of the theoretical knowledge of the 5 elements. After him, no other giant dragon had mastered more than 4 types of elemental theoretical knowledge. After all, the dragon race had been passed down for millions of years. The theoretical knowledge of each attribute had accumulated to an unimaginable level. It was extremely time-consuming to completely master a single attribute. If you spent all your time on theoretical knowledge, would you still be able to cultivate? But now, Mosher had mastered the theoretical knowledge of 8 attributes. Moreover, this knowledge was richer and more mature than any theoretical knowledge in the world. This was something that these giant dragons could not even imagine. The next day, before Mosher arrived at the academy, more than 10 parents had already gathered in the dean's office. Now that 10 days had passed, they wanted to see what kind of ability this teacher, who only taught their children war chess all day, had. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Mosher entered the academy on time. He let out a long yawn. Last night, he played very late with Happy again. According to his habit, he would sleep until 11 or 12 o'clock before waking up. But after all, he was a teacher now and had to be a role model. Therefore he got up early and did not eat breakfast. Only then did he enter the classroom on time. As he looked at the podium, he shook his head secretly. It seemed that he had to control himself when he played in the future. In the dean's office, all the parents' gazes fell on Immortal. In class 6-1, all the students' gazes also fell on Immortal. Immortal knew what they were waiting for. He nodded and said, "In the past 10 days, I've been very satisfied with your performance in war chess. So I've decided that all of you can receive my guidance today." Wow. That's great. Really? The students immediately burst into an uproar. Immortal glanced at the students, and the boiling students quickly suppressed their excitement. They were afraid that if they did not perform well, the teacher would take back what he had just said. Immortal pointed at a thin boy and said, "Golden Sword, try to cultivate for me to see." Golden Sword nodded. His eyes were full of sharpness. He was already a 5th level evolved giant dragon, the one with the highest level in this class. After he finished cultivating, Immortal shook his head and said, "Don't worry. When you run the 7th cycle, after the energy flows through the Silong acupoint, don't go through the Earth Dragon acupoint. Instead, go through the Dragon Spine acupoint first, and then go through the Sky Dragon acupoint. Nothing else changes." In the dean's office, Golden Sword's father suddenly became anxious. Chapter 596. Jin Jian's father panicked when he heard Immortal's instructions. "Dean, stop him. You should know that our golden dragon's energy is very sharp, and the heavenly dragon's cave is very fragile. If we go through the heavenly dragon's cave, we might break it. If that happens, my son will be crippled. None of our metal-type dragons have ever gone through the heavenly dragon's cave." The other parents' expressions changed when they heard that. "Stop him. Dean, does he know how to teach?" "It's too late." Seeing that the parents were about to explode, the dean released Longwei from his body. He was a super-evolved giant dragon. His Longwei was not something these parents could bear. A chill rose from the bottom of these parents' hearts. They instantly quieted down. Actually, as the head of the school, the dean should not have used Longwei on the parents. However, if he did not use Longwei now, these parents were about to explode. In the 6th grade classroom, when Jin Jian heard Immortal's words, he was still a little confused. However, when he thought about how Mu Wanqing was in the same situation when she broke through, he immediately felt confident. According to Immortal, after the 7th cycle of energy, they should not go through the heavenly dragon's cave. Instead, they should go through the dragon spine cave first, and then the heavenly dragon's cave. The next moment, Jin Jian's expression changed drastically, and his body trembled violently. Immortal's right index finger pressed directly on the heavenly dragon's cave on top of his head. After a while, large beads of sweat dripped down from Jin Jian's head. Immortal was relieved. Jin Jian's breakthrough had failed. Not only did it fail, but when the energy was in the heavenly dragon's cave, the heavenly dragon's cave was almost crippled by the sharp metal-type energy. When the students saw this scene, they were all shocked. In the dean's office, the dean frowned. He wanted these parents to watch Teacher Mo's performance, but it turned out to be a slap in the face. How the hell was he going to explain this? He glanced at the parents. Sure enough, their expressions all changed. Although they were suppressed by their Longwei and did not dare to say anything, they were furious. However, Immortal soon gave an explanation. He shook his head and said, "Jin Jian, why did you hesitate when you were attacking the heavenly dragon cave?" Jin Jian's eyes were no longer as sharp as before. He said, "I've never been to the dragon spine cave before, especially the heavenly dragon cave. Since I was young, all the seniors have told me that the sword chi of the metal element should never go through the heavenly dragon cave. Otherwise, at the very least, his acupoints would be crippled. At the very least, all the meridians in his body would be broken, and he would never be able to recover. So I hesitated." Immortal shook his head. "It's because you hesitated that you missed the best time. You all think that the dragon spine acupoint is a useless acupoint, and is completely useless in cultivation. Actually, let me tell you, the Longji acupoint is the most useful of all the acupoints. Its function was to stimulate other acupoints. When the energy passes through the Longji acupoint at a specific time, it can stimulate different acupoints. After 7 cycles, you'll have to go through the Longji acupoint to stimulate the Tianlong acupoint. After the Heavenly Dragon acupoint was stimulated, its flexibility and strength were greatly enhanced. It was completely capable of withstanding the sharp metal energy, but this time was very short, only an instant. You hesitated just now and missed the best opportunity. As the saying goes, if you're sincere, it'll work. Since you're not sincere, you can retreat. Hearing this, Jin Jian immediately said in fear, "Mentor, I won't hesitate anymore. I'll definitely break through this time." Emosher waved his hand and said to everyone, "Mu Wanqing, if you're sincere, break through immediately. Jin Jian, if you're not sincere, you won't be able to break through. Instead, you'll almost go crazy. You'll have to think about how to choose." The students looked at each other. Finally, their gazes fell on Mu Wanqing. Mu Wanqing felt everyone's gaze and her cheeks immediately turned red. Her head could be buried under the table. Finally, a student with the fire element stepped forward. "Mentor, let me do it." Emosher nodded. "Begin." That student practiced it once. Emosher gave a few simple instructions. The student followed Emosher's instructions and practiced again. 5 minutes later, a stream of air suddenly came out of his body and rushed in all directions. Fortunately, Emosher was prepared. He condensed an energy shield and covered him, shielding him from the shock wave when he broke through. All the students were pleasantly surprised when they saw this. He really broke through. As long as we follow the mentor's instructions and don't hesitate, we'll definitely break through. Originally, we had to cultivate for decades or even hundreds of years, but with the mentor's guidance, we broke through in 5 minutes. It's too scary. In the dean's office, the dean was relieved when he saw Emosher guiding the students to break through immediately again. He looked at the parents again, and saw that their eyes were also full of shock. The dean took back Longwei and said to the parents, "I'm sorry. I had to do that just now." However, the parents didn't take the fact that the dean used Longwei to suppress them, because at this time, they were all shocked by what they saw just now. "Dean, this is true. With some guidance, she broke through immediately in 5 minutes. My son didn't lie to me." "Dean, quickly let him guide my daughter. My daughter hasn't broken through for 30 years. Only Jin Jian's father hated that he couldn't go up and give his son 2 tight slaps when he saw this. Of all people to suspect, he had to suspect Mentor Mo. Now Mentor Mo won't let you break through. What should you do? Just tell me what you should do." Next, Emosher guided the students one by one. Those students broke through immediately one after another. In the end, only 2 people were left. One was Jin Jian, the other was Tuqing. Jin Jian's father was so anxious that his head was full of sweat. "Dean, please talk to Mentor Mo. I'll do whatever you want. As long as he agrees to let my son break through, I'll pay any price." The dean chuckled and said, "Don't worry, Mentor Su is just teaching Jin Jian a lesson. In fact, he still values your son very much. Otherwise, why would he ask your son to break through first?" Jin Jian's father was slightly relieved when he heard this. In fact, the reason why Emosher asked Jin Jian to break through first was that he had plundered the memories of all the students. He knew clearly what these students were thinking. Jin Jian was the one who doubted him the most among all the students. He originally planned to ask Jin Jian to come out and set a negative example to make an example out of him. He didn't expect Jin Jian to come out by himself and hit the muzzle of the gun. At this time, Emosher looked at Tuqing. Then he looked at Jin Jian. He said, "Jin Jian, I'll give you 3 days to reflect." "Yes." Chapter 597. This time, Golden Sword did not dare to hesitate anymore. He did not dare to have any doubts about Emosher's orders. When he saw the other students breaking through under the guidance of the teachers, he had already made up his mind. From now on, he would not have the slightest doubt about any of the teachers' words. When the teachers, including the dean, saw that Emosher had grasped almost all the attributes' knowledge, they could not help but open their eyes wide. How many attributes has Teacher Mo grasped? It's simply unbelievable. There are 20 students in this class, and they all know the metal, wood, water, fire, and earth attributes. Just now there was also an ice and space attributes. It's already very dangerous to know all the 5 elements, but he even grasped the ice and space attributes, these rare attributes knowledge. This is simply unimaginable. The dean was also dumbfounded. These parents only knew that Immortal had grasped 7 attributes. But the dean knew that other than these attributes, Immortal had also grasped the lightning attribute knowledge. At this moment, he no longer doubted that Immortal had grasped almost all the attributes' theoretical knowledge. Metal, wood, water, fire, earth, ice, lightning, wind, poison, time, and space. One person grasped so many attributes' knowledge. How did this guy learn? Could it be that he did not cultivate? Did he use all his time to study theoretical knowledge? But before, he only used long way to suppress so many students. This means that he is very likely a super-evolved giant dragon. In other words, the amount of time he had to cultivate was definitely not little. Even more than an ordinary giant dragon. Then how did he grasp all this knowledge? Could it be that he is a time attribute giant dragon? But the time attribute is extremely rare. Currently, in the entire 10,000 dragon star field, there are less than 10 people with the time attribute. Every time attribute giant dragon would be roped in by those big forces. How could he come to the small Cloud Sea planet and teach in the Cloud Sea Academy? It seems that I have to find teacher Mo to understand all of this. At this moment, Immortal continued to speak to Golden Sword. 3 days later, I will see your performance. Yes, Golden Sword said again. Then Immortal looked at the tall and mighty Tuching. This guy is almost 2 sizes bigger than me. According to Immortal's understanding, before Tuching entered the academy, he was an absolute genius there. However, ever since it had evolved into a rank 1 colossal dragon and entered the Ocean of Clouds Academy, it hadn't advanced another rank. And because he was too tall, he was at least 2 meters tall. His movements seemed to be somewhat inconvenient. Because of these 2 reasons, many people rolled their eyes and mocked him. At the beginning, Tuching Earth City also felt inferior for a while. But later on, he gradually became thick-skinned. He began to give up on himself and went all out. Thus he did not cultivate much. He could be said to be the most useless student in the entire academy. He looked tall and strong, but in fact any random student in the academy would be able to beat him to a pulp. At this time, Tuching Earth City's eyes, which have not appeared in brilliance for decades, are full of eager eyes. Instructor Mo, it's my turn. It's my turn. Immortal nodded and turned to the rest of the students. Today's class has been going on for half a day. You should all rest. As for Tuching Earth City, come with me. As he spoke, his mind flickered. The 2 of them instantly disappeared from the classroom. The surrounding students thought that they had teleported nearby. However, through exploration, they found that the instructor and Tuching Earth City were not nearby, not even in the academy. Tuching Earth City's father saw this scene and asked the dean in surprise, "Dean, this?" The dean smiled and shook his head. "Don't worry, Instructor Mo just took Tuching Earth City to a place." As soon as the voice fell, Immortal and Tuching Earth City reappeared in the place where they had just disappeared. At this time, Tuching Earth City did not have the previous decadence and self-abandonment look. Instead, he had a confident smile on his face. He disappeared for less than 3 seconds. How could he suddenly change into another person? Tuching Earth City's father's eyes were wide open. He even wondered if Instructor Mo had stuffed other people's souls into his son's body. Tuching Earth City, get ready today. From tomorrow onwards, you will practice according to my method. Yes. Tuching Earth City's face was full of smiles and gratitude. All the students in the classroom and the parents in the dean's office were dumbfounded. Where did they go in the last 3 seconds? What did Instructor Mo say to Tuching Earth City? In fact, within 3 seconds, Immortal took Tuching Earth City to the Earth space. The scene replayed. In the Earth space, Immortal and Tuching Earth City suddenly appeared. Tuching Earth City looked at the completely unfamiliar planet and asked, "Instructor, where is this?" Immortal said, "This is a planet." Tuching Earth City asked, "Instructor, why did you bring me here?" Immortal, "You don't have to cultivate. Even if you cultivate until you die, You won't be able to advance another level. Tuching Earth City. Instructor, I know my talent is poor, but it shouldn't be so bad, right? Sure. Your talent is not bad. Being able to enter the Cloud Sea Academy shows that your talent is much better than the average giant dragon. Then, why have all my classmates advanced in the past few decades, but I'm still in the same place? Not to mention that I didn't advance, my energy didn't even increase by a bit. My dad and those instructors have thought of many ways, but it didn't work. Sure said, because you have a planetary body. After a planetary body evolves to a level 1 dragon, the realm will no longer advance. Tuching Earth City's eyes widened. A planetary body? You mean a terrifying existence that can eventually turn the body into an entire planet? Isn't that just a legend? Sure. Many legends are true. From the first time he saw Tuching Earth City, the eye of the demon dragon let him know that this guy was an incredible planetary body. Tuching Earth City then asked. But according to legend, a planetary body depends on perception to continue to grow stronger. And in the millions of years of the giant dragon's history, there have been more than 10,000 planetary bodies, but only one giant dragon has achieved a true planetary body. The success rate is so low that it makes the dragon's hair stand on end. Sure nodded. That's because they didn't realize anything at the end of their lives. Tuching Earth City's expression dimmed. Instructor, do you think someone as stupid as me will realize it before the end of their lives? Sure said, with my method, even an idiot will be able to comprehend it in the end. Tuching Earth City heard this and immediately became excited. Really? The next moment, Sure's mind moved. Tuching Earth City's entire body began to expand rapidly. Slowly, it turned into a boulder, a mountain range, until it became an entire planet. At this time, Tuching Earth City was the planet, and the planet was Tuching Earth City. Sure said to the huge planet that had just appeared above Earth. Now that you're a planet, feel it carefully. After saying that, he sped up the time again. In just a short moment, it was as if tens of billions of years had passed. Tens of billions of years was enough for a planet to slowly take shape from nothing. What Sure wanted was for Tuching Earth City to slowly feel this process. Chapter 598. From an outsider's perspective, Sure and Tuching only disappeared for 3 seconds. But in reality, after Sure brought him to Earth, he sped up the passage of time in Earth space. 3 seconds is equivalent to 10 billion years. Some say this is too exaggerated. Come on, Sure is the god here. Here he is the omniscient and omnipotent creator. There is nothing he can't do. In this accelerated time of 10 billion years, Tuching has been feeling the changes in his body. He seems to have understood something. Then, Sure stuffed Tuching into Earth's core with another thought. Letting him stay inside for 10 billion years, letting him keep feeling. After 10 billion years, Tuching's eyes lit up as soon as he came out. Mentor, I've realized something. Sure said. Using my method, even a fool can realize it, am I right? Tuching nodded excitedly. Then his entire body began to change rapidly. He directly revealed his dragon body. The 1,000-meter-long dragon body began to change. The color of the scales on it was constantly changing. It slowly turned into the color of a stone. His entire body was like a boulder that hasn't moved for thousands of years. The spikes on his back were also constantly changing. They looked like trees that had grown out of a boulder thousands of years ago. Sure tried to attack a few times, then nodded and said, not bad. The current you can withstand the attacks of a 7th order evolved dragon at most. When you turn into a stone form, dragons below the 7th order can't do anything to you. Including 7th order, Tuching was suddenly overjoyed. Previously, he was only a rank 1 evolved giant dragon. Dragons below the 1st order could bully him. He didn't expect that dragons below the 7th order couldn't do anything to him. This change was so great that it was shocking. Sure continued. From now on, I will take you to experience the growth of a planet every day. I believe that it won't be long before your strength will far surpass others, Tuching hurriedly said. Thank you, mentor. Finally, he asked another question. Mentor, where is this place? An illusion I created, Immortal said. Tuching Earth City was very surprised. Could a teacher create such a realistic illusion? It was said that some giant dragons could create illusions, but those illusions always had some flaws and weren't too realistic. Only those extremely powerful super-evolved dragons could create illusions that could not be seen through. Could it be that Tutor had already become a super-evolved dragon? Thinking of this, he looked at his mentor in surprise. However, Immortal had already brought him back to the classroom with a single thought. Then he said to Tuching Earth City, "It's best not to mention this to anyone." Tuching Earth City also replied, "Don't worry, teacher. I'm not stupid enough to ruin my future with my own hands." He knew that only Immortal could bring him into that illusory realm. In that illusion, Immortal could speed up the passage of time, allowing him to feel the growth of a planet in a very short period of time. If he told the others and angered the tutor, he would be the only one who would suffer. In the dean's office, Tuching Earth City's father saw that everyone else had broken through. Only his son had not broken through. He couldn't help but feel anxious. But the expression on his son's face suddenly changed. He was no longer as decadent as before, but full of confidence and gratitude to Immortal. He knew that something must have happened in between. So after school, he went to find his son. On the way home with his son, he asked, "You didn't break through?" Tuching Earth City shook his head. "No breakthrough in level. But under the guidance of my mentor, my strength has improved by leaps and bounds." Father Tuching Earth frowned slightly. "Everyone else has broken through, only you haven't. Even if your strength has improved by leaps and bounds, how strong can it be?" Tuching Earth City said, "So strong that I can use my body to withstand the attack of any giant dragon below the 7th order." Tuching Earth City's father suddenly stopped in his tracks. He turned to look at his son. He wanted to see if his son was exaggerating. However, from his son's eyes and face, he could not see any evasiveness. In other words, his son was telling the truth. He couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. That mentor Imo was so amazing. Just 3 seconds of guidance, and his son's strength suddenly became strong enough to withstand the attack of a 7th order evolved giant dragon with his body? This was more awesome than taking drugs. "Tell me, what the hell is going on?" Tuching Earth City shook his head. The mentor said, "Let me not talk to others." "No. Since when did your father become an outsider?" Father Tuching Earth was so anxious that he directly burst out swearing. Tuching Earth City was still very firm. "If I tell others casually and annoy the mentor, he will never teach me again." When Tuching Earth City said this, Father Tuching Earth could only shake his head helplessly. Okay, I won't ask. But then again, what's the matter with the planetary body?" Tuching Earth City said. "It's talking about my physique. I have a planetary body, so it's useless to cultivate again. But with the mentor's method, I can even turn my body into a planet in the future. My defense is also at the planetary level." Tuching Earth City's father wondered. Planetary body? It said that it's a genius body that may only appear once in 100 years. In fact, the success rate is very low. At most, only 1 in 10,000 planetary bodies can eventually achieve a planetary body. So this planetary body is also called a waste body. Tuching Earth City's eyes were full of confidence. "Dad, you can rest assured. With the mentor, I have absolute confidence that before graduation, I can reach the level where I can use my body to withstand the attack of a 10th order evolved dragon." Hiss. Father Tuching Earth took a breath of cold air. If that's the case, his son is equivalent to being invincible below the 10th order evolved dragon. Then the future of his Tuching Earth family is promising. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but secretly look forward to it. He said, "Your mentor is a really capable person. You have to have a good attitude in front of him in the future. Don't be like before. You always cause me trouble for no reason." "Don't worry, Dad. With such a mentor around, if I don't seize the time and make good use of the time before graduation, then I'm a fool." Father Tuching Earth saw that his son finally knew how to make progress, and his eyes couldn't help but be slightly hot. After his son found that he had not broken through in the past 3 years, he gradually became decadent. He had been decadent until now. He could only comfort himself that his son came to the college to get a graduation certificate. He never expected that this new mentor would bring such a huge change to his son. Chapter 599. Emosher used one class to conquer all the students. Apart from Earth City and Golden Sword, all the students advanced by one level. However, it was far from enough to advance by one level. Their combat strength did not increase significantly. So Emosher applied to the school to take these students out for training. Every homeroom teacher and mentor had a chance to take the students out for training every semester. The previous homeroom teacher, Jean Pontu, had not taken the students out for training this semester. On Earth, when the teachers took the students out, they were all trembling with fear. Some were afraid of danger, and some were afraid of accidents. If something happened, they would not be able to explain it to their parents. However, in the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone, the giant dragons' physiques were extremely strong. As long as they were not killed on the spot, even if they were seriously injured, they could usually recover in a short time. Therefore, the teachers were free to bring the students out for training. Before leaving, the dean designated an area for Emosher. This is the Misty Mountains. You can train in the southern area of the mountains. The star beasts here are around 100 to 150 years old. The northern part of the Misty Mountains is shrouded in thick fog all year round. Moreover, the mountains are high and the forests are dense. It has become the hiding place of many dragon bandits. It is said that there are as many as 600 to 700 dragon bandits in the Misty Mountains. Therefore, you must not go there. The dean knew that Emosher was very likely a super-evolved giant dragon, and was not afraid of these dragon bandits at all. However, he still had to give the necessary instructions. Hearing the dean's words, Emosher could not help but be secretly happy. If you didn't tell me, I wouldn't have known. Since you said so, I naturally have to go. The next morning, Emosher took the students and set off for the Misty Mountains. When the students heard that they were going out for training, they were all very excited. They looked forward to going out for training every semester. However, when they reached the forest in the southern part of the Misty Mountains, Emosher quickly made them realize the reality. All of them could not even deal with a small 100-year star beast cub. This was simply King useless. What have you been doing for the past 50 years? Emosher was slightly angry. The students looked ashamed. Instructor, when Instructor Jean brought us out for training, we always worked together to kill star beast cubs. We have never fought a star beast cub alone before. Emosher couldn't help but chuckle. You're about to graduate. After graduation, unless you join the army, you won't have many opportunities to gather together. Could it be that at that time, when you saw the star beast cubs, you could only run away? You guys think that it's easy for you to find a job after graduating from a famous school. But you never know which comes first, tomorrow or the accident. What if you encounter a baby star beast when you're alone? Even if you go to the army, it will be 1,000 times crueler than here. People like you won't even be able to clean the toilet bowl. After being scolded by Emosher, the students all lowered their heads, not daring to say a word. Even the naughtiest students in the class were stunned by Emosher's scolding. Next, Emosher repeated the training he did for Lei Run. These students first fought a 100-year-old star beast cub alone. Emosher not only taught them how to exert force, but also how to condense energy in any part of their body. After a short 3 days, these students were already able to deal with 100-year-old star beast cubs. After 10 years, they could deal with 110-year-old star beasts. Then, it was 120-year-old star beasts, 130-year-old star beasts. In the end, no matter their level, almost every student could deal with a star beast cub that was one level higher than them. After that, Emosher imparted the various 9 dragon transformations that he had learned before to them. Of course, Emosher only imparted the first and second transformations to them. Just to master the first and second transformations would take a few months. As for the third transformation and beyond, it was purely up to luck. After spending 1.5 months to master the first 2 transformations of these dragons, Every student could rely on these two transformations to fight against star beasts that were at least 5 levels above them. Some were even able to fight star beasts that were at least 160, 70, 80, and even 80 to 90 years old. If converted to the level of giant dragons, they could basically deal with evolved giant dragons that were at least 6 levels higher than them. And among these students, the one who performed the most outstanding was Jin Jian. Because he was not sincere before, Immortal told him to break through in 3 days. From then on, he did not hesitate to follow Immortal's orders. After 3 days, Immortal told him to start breaking through. As a result, this guy broke through by 2 levels. He jumped from level 4 to level 6 evolved giant dragon. This made the students in the class so shocked that their jaws almost fell to the ground. Every level of a giant dragon's breakthrough was very difficult. At their level, it was considered fast to break through 1 level in 100 years. The mentor took them to break through in 5 minutes, which was enough to shock everyone. As a result, Jin Jian, this guy, actually broke through 2 levels in 10 minutes. It was really too shocking. Now Jin Jian was one of the 2 students with the highest level in the entire class, and his metal attribute energy was extremely sharp. When he learned to attach metal attribute energy to every part of his body, it was as if every part of his body was equipped with extremely sharp blades. Every move could cut through gold and stone. The only person in the class who did not break through was Tuching Earth City. When the mentor taught everyone in the class all kinds of 9 dragon transformations, the only person who did not teach was Tuching Earth City. But Tuching Earth City did not seem to be disappointed. On the contrary, he was always happy. When the students saw this, they all secretly pitied Tuching Earth City. He had been left far behind by the other students and could not make the slightest progress. On the surface he looked indifferent, but in fact, his heart must be very uncomfortable. How could they know that the current Tuching Earth City, after a month and a half in Immortal's space on Earth, had also improved at a rapid pace? Before he could only turn into a boulder. But now, Tuching Earth City could directly turn into a mountain that was 10,000 meters tall. What was the use of this mountain? It fell directly from the sky and hit you. Would you be afraid? As for the defense, there was nothing to say. This mountain was not like an ordinary mountain that could be easily knocked down by evolved giant dragons. This mountain was extremely tough. It would be extremely difficult to knock down this mountain if one was not a super evolved dragon. In fact, in terms of strength, Tuching Earth City was already the strongest among all the students. These students were just fooling around. Under Tuching Earth City's attack, destroying a city would not be a problem. However, Immortal did not let Tuching Earth City take action for the time being. If he took action, the others would not have to gain experience. If a mountain came down, those star beast cubs would all be crushed into meat paste, and they would gain experience. Chapter 600. After 2 months of training, the students had mastered all kinds of 9 dragon transformations. Now, almost every student could use all kinds of 9 dragon transformations to defeat opponents that were at least 4 ranks higher. Some of the stronger and sharper attributes, such as Golden Sword, could already be invincible against those below the super evolved giant dragon. At this time, there were only 5 days left until the graduation exam. The dean had already contacted Immortal and asked him to bring the students back to the academy as soon as possible. Immortal agreed. Then he said to the students, "Since you're almost done with your training, I'll bring you to do something big today." The students didn't know what Immortal meant, but they were all very excited. In the past 2 months, each of them could kill star beast cubs that were above their ranks. He had even hunted and killed a 200-year-old star beast cub. In their opinion, this was already quite an achievement. They didn't expect that in the eyes of their teacher, this was nothing. They were going to do something big next. Did he want them to kill star beast cubs that were more than 200 years old? What a joke. That was an existence equivalent to a super evolved giant dragon. If they went up, wouldn't they be looking for trouble? But it didn't matter. With their teacher beside them, what did they not dare to do? Although until now they hadn't seen their teacher in action. But they knew that their teacher's strength was definitely that of a super evolved giant dragon. After all, Their teacher had taught them for 2 months, and each of them could defeat enemies that were 4 or 5 ranks higher. Golden Sword was invincible against those below the super-evolved giant dragon. If someone said that their teacher's strength had not reached that of a super-evolved giant dragon, they wouldn't believe it even if they were beaten to death. When they thought that their teacher was actually a super-evolved giant dragon, these students were very proud. One had to know that in the entire Cloud Sea Star, there were probably only about 10,000 people who had reached the super-evolved giant dragon level. If they knew that their teacher was not only a super-evolved giant dragon, but also the only level 5 super-evolved giant dragon on the entire planet, who knew how they would feel? Soon, Immortal led the 20 students through the entire southern part of the Misty Mountains. They arrived at the ridge of the mountain. Looking from the ridge to both sides, one could see 2 completely different styles. The southern part of the mountain range was full of green vegetation and lush trees. A wide river, like a silver jade belt under the sun, floated into the distance. The northern part was completely shrouded in fog. It was impossible to see what was inside. Even if these students used their evolved dragon senses, they couldn't find out what was going on inside. Only Immortal's draconic will could penetrate the mist and see what was inside. One of the students asked, "Instructor, it is said that there are many dragon bandits' lairs in the fog north of the Fog Mountains. Are we still going?" The rest of the students also looked at Immortal. The dragon bandits were all outlaws. They didn't care about morals or laws. They only cared about killing dragons to steal their goods and steal their treasures. Immortal smiled. "The reason I brought you here today is to suppress the bandits." All the students were stunned. "Instructor, are you sure you're not mistaken? The government has been suppressing it for so many years, but to no avail. Now that you've brought 20 students, you want to suppress the bandits? Wasn't this a little too exaggerated?" Immortal laughed. "What? You don't dare?" After all, these students were still young and full of vigor. How could they withstand such provocation? Why not? Every one of us can challenge someone 5 levels above us. Golden Sword is invincible below super-evolved dragons. What do we have to be afraid of? Actually, there was an important reason that they didn't mention. With a super-evolved dragon teacher by their side, what were they afraid of? However, just as they thought of this, Immortal shattered their fantasy. "Each of you is stronger than those dragon bandits individually, so I won't take part in suppressing the bandits this time. At most, I'll give you some ideas and guide you from the side. As for whether you'll take care of the dragon bandits or the dragon bandits will take you in, it will depend on your skills." The students were all a little nervous, but also a little excited. They had killed many baby star beasts, but they hadn't killed a dragon yet. Immortal said, "Follow closely." As he spoke, he flew forward. The group of students behind him hurriedly followed behind. They could only see about 10 meters from here. Even with their perception, they could only see about 100 meters. If they were not careful, they might lose him. Half an hour later, they arrived at the bottom of a cliff. There was a cave under the cliff. According to Immortal's detection, there were about 40 dragon bandits inside. But he didn't intend to tell the students the exact number. Otherwise, without a rank 10 Long Yen by their side in the future, would they stop suppressing bandits? Immortal said, "The dragon bandits are all valiant and ruthless. They don't follow any rules. We haven't found out how many dragon bandits there are in the cave. You can use 3 to 5 people to lure out some of them. After killing them, immediately retreat. Pay attention to the 2 survivors. Interrogate them separately and see how many dragon bandits there are. If they say the number is about the same, it's true. If the number is wrong, it must be a lie. After killing them, there will definitely be more dragon bandits coming out to investigate. When the time comes, we'll act according to the situation." "Yes." The students spoke one after another. At this moment, the class monitor, Shui Bolin, began to give orders. "Mu Wanqing, Kong Ming, Golden Sword, you 3 go to the entrance of the cave and challenge them. The rest of you lie in ambush. Tuqing, you're the weakest. Hide in the distance. When the battle is about to start, cast an earth element energy shield on each of us. During the battle, see if anyone's shield is broken and immediately mend it. At the same time, pay attention to your own safety. During the battle, no one has time to protect you. The students all agreed. Tuqing looked at Immortal. Immortal transmitted his voice to him. Do as she says first. Tuqing nodded. Then he went to find a place to hide more than 50 meters behind. In fact, 50 meters was not a distance at all for a giant dragon. But there was no other way. There was fog everywhere. They had to rely on their perception to distinguish more than 50 meters. If it was any further, even their perception could not see it. As for Immortal, he could not only see it with his dragon consciousness. And his demon dragons, I could also easily see everything in this fog. So it could be said that everything was under his control. At this moment, the rest of the students were hiding more than 20 meters away. Kong Ming, Golden Sword, and Mu Wanqing went to challenge them. Mu Wanqing was a little timid. She walked at the back. Golden Sword had a metallic sword aura, and was very sharp. He took the lead and came to a place only 10 meters away from the stone cave door. He shouted, "The dragon bandits inside, listen up. Come out immediately and die." A moment later, he saw a dragon bandit inside poking his head out. Chapter 601. The dragon bandit poked his head out and looked around. When he saw Jin Jian and the other two, he was stunned. F***CK, is it so exaggerated to send students to suppress bandits now? The dragon bandit had been in society for many years, and was extremely experienced. Naturally, he could tell at a glance that Jin Jian and the other two were students. Kong Ming snorted coldly. So what if you're students? Students will still destroy you. Hearing this, the dragon bandit laughed. Little brother, you're looking down on us dragon bandits too much. If just a few students can suppress bandits, then we might as well quit our jobs. Kong Ming said, "Cut the crap. Call out all your dragon bandits, and let you see if our students can suppress bandits." The dragon bandit probed. Although there was an ambush nearby, there were only a dozen students. He was immediately amused. Which idiot instructor brought the students to train, and actually let the students suppress bandits? Can any B-grade instructor do the job now? Then he looked at Immortal, who was not far away. You should be the instructor, right? Did you pull your brain out when you came out for training? Immortal could not be bothered with him at all. Whoosh, a ray of metal attribute energy flashed. The dragon bandit was directly cut in half from head to toe. The eyes of the two halves of his corpse were filled with disbelief. Instant kill? Were the students now so terrifying? But it didn't matter. He was still completely dead. After those brothers in the cave rushed out and destroyed these guys, there was still hope for him to be saved. However, just as this thought flashed through his mind, whoosh 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 whoosh, the two halves of the dragon bandit's corpse were all cut into pieces. At this moment, Mu Wanqing saw this and suddenly felt her stomach churn. She couldn't help but squat down and vomit. In the past, she killed star beast cubs. After all, they were different species, so killing them didn't seem to make her feel much. But when she saw the corpse of the dragon bandit, who was also a giant dragon, she suddenly felt serious psychological and physical discomfort. Kong Ming's face was also slightly pale. He turned to look at Jin Jian. This guy was too sharp. Wasn't he disgusted at all? Of course, Jin Jian was disgusted. But at this moment he focused all his attention on the cave entrance, so the feeling of disgust was not that strong. Although it was his first time killing a giant dragon, he wanted to prove to his mentor that he was not inferior to any giant dragon. When the dragon bandits hiding in the cave saw this, their hearts trembled. Brothers, these students are not to be trifled with. Not to be trifled with, there are only 20 of them. Including their teachers, there are only 21 of them. There are 60 of us. Can't we beat them? Seeing this, the leader of the bandits frowned. He thought to himself, they haven't experienced the beating of society, so they don't know how ruthless the dragon bandits are. Brothers, let's attack together and destroy these bastards. With a shout, more than 60 people immediately rushed out from the edge. However, right after they rushed out, all of them suddenly stopped moving. The space around them seemed to have been sealed. No matter how hard they tried, no matter how much energy they used, they couldn't move at all. They were shocked. Not good, there's a space attribute giant dragon. The golden sword was the first to strike. His entire being seemed to have become one with the sword. In an instant, he attacked the dragon bandits at the very front. Whoosh! The dragon bandit's head exploded. The rest of the dragon bandits' expressions changed. They hurriedly struggled with all their might. These students were still lacking in actual combat experience, so they couldn't seize the opportunity of Kongming's space imprisonment. They were slightly slower, and the dragon bandits broke free. There were too many people here. Kongming's space imprisonment could only imprison them for 3 seconds at most. After these dragon bandits broke free, they all revealed their ferocity. The bandit leader roared angrily, "Kill them!" He could tell that although some of these students were of the space attribute, their levels weren't high. They couldn't imprison them for too long. Moreover, these students didn't cooperate well with each other. In addition, they had 3 times the number of these students. If they still couldn't win, they wouldn't be able to survive. That was why he ordered these brothers to kill these students. These students were indeed lacking in actual combat experience. In addition, they weren't as fierce as the dragon bandits to begin with. The dragon bandits had the aura of desperation, which they couldn't compare to. Therefore, they were at a disadvantage as soon as they started fighting. Whoosh! A student's chest was pierced through. Crack! A student's leg was directly cut off. Puff! At this moment, another student's head flew into the air. Wang Yi pretended not to see this. These students were the top geniuses of their respective families. They were usually doted on, and doted on by everyone. They had never suffered such a blow before. If they didn't suffer a little now, they might not be able to take it if they had to suffer again when they entered society. Rather than that, it was better to let them suffer now. This way they would grow faster. Soon, these students all fell to the ground. Even if they had the Earth attribute light shield of Earth City, they couldn't withstand the attacks of so many dragon bandits. When Emosher saw that one of the students was about to be beaten to death, he used his telekinesis to save him. Emosher snatched the body and head of the student who had lost his head. He put the body and head together, opened his mouth, and poured a bottle of medicine inside. In just 5 minutes, the student's head was connected. It was intact. This was the healing medicine that Emosher had received after signing in at the 10,000 Dragons Star Zone. If this healing medicine was placed on Earth, an ordinary person would be able to heal any wound instantly after drinking a bottle. It was also because this student had a dragon body that his recovery was so slow. Soon almost all the students fell to the ground. Emosher shook his head slightly and saved them all. Then he shouted to Earth City in the distance, "You're here." When the seriously injured students saw this, they all looked at their teacher in surprise. 19 of them attacked at the same time, but they were still beaten up so badly. Their teacher actually let Earth City go up alone? Wouldn't that be an instant kill? When the dragon bandits saw Emosher's methods, they were also slightly afraid of Emosher. But when they saw that Emosher didn't do it himself, but sent a student up, they laughed. One by one they all laughed. Ha 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 ha. So many people can't beat us. Your teacher sent you to your death. You fool, you were deceived by your teacher, and you're still working for him. Sai, what kind of teachers are they now? They're still calling themselves dragon bandits. They tricked students to their deaths. Alright, since you want to die, I'll fulfill your wish. However, Earth City didn't care about the more than 50 dragon bandits. Go kill him. The bandit leader roared. The other dragon bandits immediately let out a shout and charged towards the Earthen City. Chapter 602. When Tuqing appeared alone in front of the 60 dragon bandits, all the students were stunned. Tuqing. Instructor. How can you let him deal with so many dragon bandits alone? Instructor. Get him to come back. Tuqing, you idiot, come over here. Tuqing had always been the one at the bottom of their class. It had been almost 60 years since he entered the academy. His level had never increased. Because of the limited energy in his body, he could not learn any slightly advanced earth attribute skills. Now there were 19 of them, with all kinds of attributes, but they were still defeated by those dragon bandits. Tuching, on the other hand, was facing 60 dragon bandits one by one. This was completely suicide. However, Immortal was not moved at all. Tuching was also not moved. Facing those dragon bandits who were mocking him, he turned around and looked at Immortal. Immortal nodded slightly at him. The next moment, Tuching roared. Ah! When those dragon bandits saw this, they could not help but laugh. That's quite scary. It's okay to scare a little girl. But don't you know who I am? As they said that, those dragon bandits continued to pounce. They were going to chop Tuching into meat paste. However, at this moment, Tuching suddenly leaped into the air. At the same time, his body rapidly expanded and changed. His skin began to petrify, and even his eyes began to petrify. His body no longer looked like a human, but like a huge rock. And this huge rock was still growing. In just a moment, it had turned into a mountain 10,000 meters tall, more than 50 kilometers long and wide. When those students saw this, their eyes almost popped out. Tuching. This, oh my god. Those dragon bandits who had just pounced over also had a drastic change in expression. They had seen dragons that were tens of thousands of meters long, and they had also seen super-evolved dragons that were 100,000 meters long. But this guy could turn into a 100,000-meter tall mountain. They had never seen it before. In shock, they hurriedly wanted to escape. However, it was too late. That mountain fell from the sky. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The ground shook violently. Mountains collapsed and the earth cracked. Within a radius of hundreds of kilometers, there was an extremely strong tremor. Trees toppled and birds bugled. As for the area within 50 kilometers, there was no movement at all, because everything was firmly pressed down by this huge mountain. Rumble, rumble. With a thought, Immortal brought the students away from their original spot. It was floating in the sky more than 60 kilometers away. Looking at his eyes, everything was shaking. It was as if someone was constantly running around with a camera in their hand. The tremors lasted for more than 5 minutes. The smoke and dust that filled the air lasted for a full 15 minutes. When a gust of wind blew and the dust settled, the mountain had already disappeared. A figure could be seen slowly emerging from the dust cloud. It was the unremarkable Tuching. Around him, within a radius of 50 kilometers, the ground had sunk several dozen meters deep. All the trees, rocks, mountains, and rivers inside no longer existed. As for the close to 60 dragon bandits, they had long been crushed into thin pieces of paper. They were like human specimens that had been crushed, sinking deep into the ground. Seeing this scene, except for Tuching, all the students were dumbfounded. Was this still the guy who ranked last in their eyes? It had been almost 60 years since he entered school. This Tuching couldn't do anything but eat first. This kind of student was often the most annoying, so there was no one in the class who had a good relationship with him. He had also given up and lost his drive to improve. In everyone's eyes, this guy was just waiting to graduate and leave. But now, the close to 60 dragon bandits that 19 of them couldn't deal with together were killed by him in one move? Wasn't this 2F** King big of a contrast? And it could actually become such a huge mountain. This was really F** King ridiculous. It seemed that not to mention 60 people. Even if it was 600 people, 6,000 people, or even 60,000 people, Tuching could also kill them in one move. It was said that Golden Sword was ignorant below the super-evolved dragon. But looking at Tuching, he was probably infinitely close to the super-evolved dragon. One must know that he was only a rank 1 evolved dragon. In everyone's shock, Tuching slowly walked over. Immortal asked with a smile, "How do you feel?" Tuching, "A little disgusting." With that, he vomited all over the ground. After all, it was his first time killing people, killing dragons. And killing so many at once. It would be strange if he didn't feel disgusted. When he was almost done vomiting, a group of students said one after another, "Tuching, you're really something. We were all blind before. Is this the power of the planetary body? Didn't you say before that the planetary body needs to be comprehended, and there is only a 1 in 10,000 chance of successfully comprehending it? I can't see that you usually look like a broken jar. But in fact, it's all for us to see. It's only been 2 months, and you've already comprehended it to this extent. This was the first time Tuqing had been praised by his classmates in the past 60 years. He, who had always had a face as thick as a city wall, scratched the back of his head in embarrassment and laughed twice. It's not that I comprehended quickly, it's that the mentor taught me well. This was the truth. Although he had a planetary body, he wasn't too smart. With his brain, he wouldn't be able to comprehend it even if he was given 8 lifetimes. It was Mo who put him in the Earth space, so that he could experience hundreds of millions of years in a few seconds. It allowed him to constantly feel the formation of a planet. When he really couldn't comprehend it, Mo used the omniscience and omnipotence in the Earth space to directly make him comprehend it in an instant. This repeated over and over again, and he was able to reach his current level in more than 2 months. All the students listened and looked at Mo. They believed that Tuqing's words must have been taught well by Mentor Mo. Without Mentor Mo, Tuqing probably wouldn't have been able to reach 1 in 10,000 of what he had just done in this lifetime. It wasn't just Tuqing. Without the mentor, all of them were still the same as they were 2 months ago. The self-righteous students of Cloud Sea Academy were all complacent. They didn't know what a real fight was, and they didn't know how dangerous the fight with the dragon bandits was. When Mentor Jean Panda left, they were still in a bad mood. They even planned to take over the mentor of their class. Now that they think about it, they were really stupid. If they had really driven Mentor Mo away, it would definitely have been the stupidest thing they had ever done in their lives. Chapter 603. When Tuqing Earth City killed nearly 60 dragon bandits in one move, the students were naturally surprised. Even Tuqing himself was quite surprised by himself. Although he knew that he could transform into a mountain, he never dared to think that he could kill so many dragons in one move. One had to know that those guys were all of a higher level than him. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 levels higher. This made Tuqing's eyes fill with tears. If his parents knew that he could kill so many dragons in one move, he didn't know how excited they would be. But Mo wasn't excited at all. If he had to say that there was an emotional change, it would be gratification. The kind of gratification a teacher felt when he saw his student improving. At this moment, the system's sexy voice sounded in Mo's mind. Frowny face dragon slaying. 334500. He was 1 step closer to advancing to a rank 6 super evolved dragon. He reckoned that after exterminating all the dragon bandits in the Misty Mountains, he would be able to level up no matter what. Next, Mo took out some healing potions for the students to apply and consume. The recovery speed of these potions he received from the system was very abnormal. No matter how serious the injuries of the students were, they could recover within 5 minutes. This caused the students to be very surprised. "Teacher, where did you get this healing potion? I'll get my family to buy some too." Mo smiled and shook his head. "It's a secret ancestral recipe self-made." The class monitor, Shui Bolan, took the bottle and looked at it. He looked up and asked, "Teacher, can I buy some from you? You can name the price." Shui Bolan wasn't short of money. But was Mo short of money? What a joke, he didn't need to spend money on cultivation. The Lei family paid for his food, accommodation, and other expenses. Therefore, he didn't spend much money usually. He shook his head and said, "These potions of mine are all exclusive. I won't sell them for any price. You guys are my students, so I'm letting you use them for free. If it were anyone else, you can recover on your own." Shui Bolan could only shake his head helplessly. "Alright, rest up. When you guys are fully recovered, we'll head to the next dragon bandit's lair." The students didn't have any complaints. Although they had failed to suppress the bandits just now, after that fierce battle, they had experienced the cruelty of real combat. At the same time, they had also learned a lot. They had learned to not hold back when facing their enemies. He had learned that when facing an enemy, he had to put aside all the principles of Jianghu, etiquette, justice, integrity, and shame. Only if he could survive would he have the chance to talk about these things. At the same time, they also learned a lot of combat skills. Some of the moves that they thought were cool before were useless in battle. They learned that in a battle of life and death, they should throw away all the fancy tricks. Instead, he used the simplest and most direct movements to greet the opponent's most fatal weakness. They rested for more than half an hour. This half an hour was mainly for the students to recover mentally. His body only needed 5 minutes to recover. However, they had just experienced such a great battle, and it would be difficult for them to recover in a short period of time. Immortal had given them half an hour of rest, but it was far from enough for them. But that was exactly what Immortal wanted. According to him, giving these students half an hour of rest was already more than enough. On a real battlefield, the enemy wouldn't be so nice as to give you half an hour to rest. If it was a large battlefield, the beginning of the battle may take a few hours, or even more than 10 hours. Would the enemy give me time to rest during this period? When Immortal was on Earth, he faced hundreds of millions of zombies. Who would give you time to rest in the wild at that time? As soon as you encountered a zombie, you had to fight immediately. And at that time, his recovery ability was far less than the current students. Didn't he survive? After half an hour, most of the students had not recovered mentally. Among all the students, only Golden Sword and Earth City looked normal. Golden Sword had always been sharp, and there was nothing wrong with his quick recovery. Earth City, on the other hand, didn't participate in any battle at all. Just one move, and the other side was finished. Therefore, he hardly needed any recovery time. It was just that he had just turned into a mountain, which made him a little tired. The body of a planet is different from the general dragon. The body of a planet doesn't care how much energy there is in the body. It's about perception. As long as you perceive it, even if there is no energy in the body, you can turn into a mountain. The body of a planet only needs physical strength. The better the physical strength, the longer the time you can turn into a mountain. Right now, Golden Sword could only last for more than 10 seconds at a time. Therefore, Immortal had given him 2 tasks these days. One was to perceive the body of a planet, and the other was to train his physical strength. And these could be done in an extremely short time in Earth space. At the same time, Immortal also had a plan. After eliminating the dragon bandits here, he would let these students enter his Earth space for a period of secret training. The reason why he didn't bring them in before was that he wasn't familiar with these students. He didn't know their morals. Now, after a period of understanding, coupled with their admiration for Immortal in their hearts, Immortal was completely at ease with them. The Misty Mountains were very big. With the students' flying speed, it took more than an hour to reach the second dragon bandit lair. When they landed in the dragon bandit lair, the students looked at the cave entrance and were all very surprised. The Misty Mountains were full of fog. The visibility was less than 10 meters. Even if they used the perception ability of a giant dragon, they could only sense a range of 100 meters at most. Perhaps even the dragon bandits who had been living here all their lives would get lost if they flew in the air like them. How did the instructor distinguish the path? Moreover, these dragon bandits had been here for hundreds of years, and the government couldn't do anything to them. They couldn't find the path here either. How did the instructor know where the dragon bandits were? Of course, they didn't know that their instructor wasn't just a powerful super-evolved giant dragon. He was also a level 10 Long Nianshi. In the 10,000 Dragon Star Zone, Long Nianshi wasn't as strong as on Earth or the Flaming Land. After all, everyone was a giant dragon. It was very difficult to hurt them with Dragon Will. But Dragon Will was still very useful. Its greatest use was to scout out the situation in the surroundings. On the Flaming Land, the highest was level 10 Long Nianshi. And because Dragon Will didn't add much to battle, very few Long Nianshi would spend the effort to cultivate to level 10. Usually they would cultivate to level 5 or level 6 or level 7 at most. That was because Dragon Will was harder to cultivate at the later levels. And giant dragons would spend more time on their own leveling up, so they naturally didn't pay much attention to cultivating Dragon Will. Chapter 604. Because there were no dragons to focus on cultivating their Dragon Will, Immortal's level 10 Long Nianshi surprised these students. Next, Emosher let the students analyze the enemy's situation and come up with a corresponding attack plan. Occasionally he would give some guidance from the side. Half an hour later, these students finished their analysis and discussion, and then began to implement their plan. Another half an hour later, the plan was successfully implemented. Of course, this plan did not include Earth City. Earth City was too strong. If it killed all of them in an instant, what else was there to plan? And in order to train their abilities, they could not let Earth City kill them in an instant. The result was obvious. These students were beaten up by the dragon bandits until they could not take care of themselves. But this time, it was better than last time. This time, they first let Kong Ming do a wave of control. Then let the Ice Beauty do another wave of control. Then the water element Water Ripple did a wave of control. The 3 consecutive waves of crowd control lasted for a total of 10 seconds. The rest of the students took advantage of these 10 seconds to kill 8 dragon bandits. This made Emosher very happy. The most gratifying thing for a teacher was to see the improvement of his students. However, these students killed the 8 dragon bandits, which made the rest of the dragon bandits furious. They crazily took revenge on them. These students were soon beaten to a pulp. At this moment, Emosher used the dragon will to pull these students back. At the same time, Earth City moved again. It turned into a mountain and pressed down. All the dragon bandits were instantly destroyed. In Emosher's mind, the dragon slaying points increased by more than 50. Dragon slaying points, 388,500. In the next 2 days, they destroyed 6 groups of dragon bandits. The students improved more and more. When they destroyed the 6th dragon bandit group, they were no longer being beaten up one-sidedly. Instead, they were able to fight the dragon bandits to a draw. One had to know that their numbers had always been inferior to the dragon bandits. Moreover, these dragon bandits were all people who licked blood on the blade, desperados. With 1/3 of the dragon bandits' numbers, it was already quite an achievement to be able to fight them to a draw. Emosher originally wanted to let the students train for a few more days. Unfortunately, there were only so many dragon bandits in the Misty Mountains, and they were all wiped out. Emosher could not help but shake his head. Squad leader Shui Bolin asked, "Instructor, why did you shake your head? Is it because we didn't do well enough?" Emosher asked, "What do you think?" Shui Bolin thought for a moment and said, "Compared to those students of the same level, we have already done very well." Emosher shook his head. "It's too small." I've seen someone who, at your level, was already invincible against anyone below the super-evolved colossal dragon. Shui Bolin shook her head. "What's so strange about that? Isn't the golden sword also able to do the same?" Emosher smiled. "Jinjian is good at one-on-one fights, but the person I know is good at one-on-one fights. 1 against 100, 1 against 1,000, they're still ignorant of those below the super-evolved colossal dragon." Shui Bolin shrugged his shoulders. "That's not surprising. Tuching Earth City can do 1 against 1,000. Emosher shook his head again. Tuching Earth City needs someone to cooperate and control the enemy within the range of his big move to show great lethality. And the person I know doesn't need the cooperation of others at all. Shuttling through thousands of troops, he can also stroll leisurely." Mu Wanqing lowered her head and asked in a low voice, "Instructor, the person you're talking about is yourself." Emosher smiled but did not answer. The students were all curious. Their tutor was able to train them to such an extent in just 2 months. Their instructor's strength must be extraordinary. It was very likely that he was a super-evolved colossal dragon. But as for how strong their instructor was, they had never seen it. "Instructor, your realm should be a super-evolved colossal dragon, right? Is it rank 1 or rank 2? Tuching Earth City asked. Emosher still smiled and did not answer. "If there's a chance in the future, you may see it." Seeing that Emosher did not answer their questions, the students could only give up. But in private, they guessed that Emosher was very likely a rank 1 super-evolved colossal dragon. There were only about 10,000 rank 1 super-evolved colossal dragons in the entire Cloud Sea Star. With such a person as their instructor, their ancestors' graves would probably be smoking. Of course, there were also people who guessed that he was a rank 2 super-evolved colossal dragon. There were only 5 or 6,000 of them in the entire Cloud Sea Star. If their instructor was really rank 2, their ancestors' graves would probably be on fire. As for rank 3 or 4, they did not even dare to think about it. There were only a few hundred rank 3 super-evolved colossal dragons in the Cloud Sea Star. There were only 70 or 80 rank 4 ones. Each of them was a big shot. How could they come to the Cloud Sea Academy to teach students? What they did not know was that when they killed those dragon bandits, Immortal had already advanced to a rank 6 super-evolved colossal dragon. A rank 6 super-evolved colossal dragon was a unique existence in the entire Cloud Sea Star. Even the Star Lord of the Cloud Sea Star was only a rank 5 super-evolved colossal dragon. In the entire star field, only those who reached rank 5 and above could become Star Lords. In other words, Immortal's strength now did not lose to any Star Lord. Even if his level was lower than theirs, with Immortal's ability to challenge those of a higher level, he could fight them head-on. So on any planet, he could walk sideways, vertically, or diagonally. He could walk however he wanted. At this moment, Immortal looked at the dragon slaying points in his mind. Frowny-faced dragon slaying points. 112, 1000. It would be difficult for him to level up again in the short term, unless Immortal went on a killing spree and slaughtered all the colossal dragons on the planet. In that case, he could quickly become an ancient colossal dragon. But he did not know much about the star field. Who knew if there were some hidden big shots that could kill him with one slap? So now, Immortal still adhered to one principle: develop wretchedly and don't be reckless. If he wanted to be reckless, he would nurture these students and let them go out and do whatever they wanted. Since there were no more dragon bandits in the Misty Mountains, Immortal planned to bring these students back to the academy to take the final exam. But they had just flown for more than 1,000 kilometers when Immortal suddenly stopped. The students also stopped. Immortal turned to the right and said, "All of you step back." The students knew that when they encountered something stronger than them, the teachers would usually let them deal with it themselves. Now that the teacher was telling them to step back, it meant that this thing was far from what they could deal with. Soon they sensed that thing. Everyone's expression changed drastically, because within their range of perception, they could not see the full appearance of that thing at all. This was enough to show that the thing was huge. Some students hurriedly turned on their multifunctional watches and opened the Star Beast Cub level test software. Soon the test results were out. And in the past, the test results only showed the level. This time, the screen kept flashing with a red light and a warning sound. Warning: you have encountered a 250-year-old Star Beast Cub. It is equivalent to a rank 5 super-evolved colossal dragon. Please avoid it as soon as possible. Please avoid it as soon as possible. Hearing this, all the students were stunned. 250-year-old Star Beast Cub? Equivalent to a rank 5 super-evolved colossal dragon. An existence on the same level as a Star Master. Chapter 605. All 20 students were dumbfounded when they saw the feedback on their multifunctional watches. A 250-year-old Star Beast Cub. It was equivalent to a level 5 super-evolved giant dragon. Even if all 20 of them transformed into giant dragons, they would not be able to defeat this Star Beast Cub. Even Earth City, which had a planetary body, was nothing in front of this Star Beast Cub. It could slap him back to his original form with just a tail. All the students looked at Immortal involuntarily. They thought that even the instructor would not be able to do anything in front of this Star Beast Cub. After all, the Star Beast Cub was equivalent to a level 5 super-evolved giant dragon. No matter how strong the instructor was, he was only a level 2 super-evolved giant dragon. There was a difference of 3 levels. How could they fight? Also, they could not turn around and run when they encountered a Star Beast Cub, because if they ran, it would be equivalent to showing weakness. The Star Beast Cub would chase after them like a dog, then it would be over. They had never encountered such a situation before. No matter how strong the Star Beast Cub they encountered before was, there was always an instructor behind them. They did not need to panic at all. But this time, they were really panicking. However, when they looked at Immortal, They only saw Immortal say to them indifferently, "Don't worry. Wait here." The next moment, they flew toward the star beast's cub. They did not even have time to shout. Soon, the instructor had already flown out of their perception range. They could only hear a huge sound coming from that direction, as if a meteorite had fallen to the ground. Then there was a huge shockwave that caused the thick fog to tumble. They were also sent flying for about 5 kilometers by this huge shockwave. The next moment, everyone's expression changed drastically, because in their perception, the star beast cub was flying toward them. Everyone hurriedly scattered in all directions. The next moment, a star beast cub that was more than 10 kilometers long and shaped like a giant koan streaked across the thick fog in front of them. Just looking at this giant koan made everyone's hair stand on end. In front of this giant koan, they seemed so small. Even if they transformed into giant dragons that were thousands of meters long, they were not worth mentioning at all in front of this giant koan. However, this giant koan flew past them for a few seconds before it started to fall rapidly. Finally, it crashed to the ground. The mountain below collapsed with a loud bang. The forest below the mountain was crushed by the huge rocks and the giant leviathan's body, making cracking noises. All the students' faces were filled with shock. More than 10 seconds later, the giant leviathan below remained motionless. Only then did they realize that the giant leviathan wasn't flying towards them. Instead, he was smashed by a huge force. It was as if an invisible giant hand had strangled the giant koan and thrown it over. Moreover, the giant leviathan's entire body had been sealed in ice. When it landed on the ground, ice shards scattered everywhere. Just as they were all trembling in fear, the teacher's figure appeared in the thick fog in front of them. The teacher glanced at them and said, "Let's go." Then he turned around and flew forward. All the students suddenly realized something at this moment. All of them looked at their teacher in disbelief. Wait, this was an instant kill. Teacher actually killed a giant leviathan in seconds? A giant leviathan equivalent to a tier 5 super-evolved colossal dragon. Good heavens! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. He was so shocked that he couldn't react for a long time. That meant that the teacher was at least a tier 6 super-evolved colossal dragon. After reaching the level of a super-evolved colossal dragon, the gap between each tier was huge. Therefore, a tier 6 super-evolved colossal dragon could easily kill a creature equivalent to a tier 5 super-evolved colossal dragon. Hiss, teacher, he's a tier 6? Oh my god, what did this mean? It meant that the teacher's strength was even stronger than the Star Lord. It meant that on the entire Cloud Sea Star, the teacher was undoubtedly the ceiling of combat strength. It meant that as long as the teacher was willing, he could completely take over the ruling rights of a planet. Why aren't you leaving? Are you going to stay here and feed the giant leviathan? Immortal's voice came from the thick fog in front of them. This pulled all the students back to reality. Then they were all extremely excited. They hurriedly followed the teacher's figure. With such a teacher, they didn't know how many good deeds they had done in their previous lives and how much merit they had accumulated. If their relatives and friends knew about this, they would be shocked. Imagining the shocked expressions on their relatives' and friends' faces, they felt a burst of joy in their hearts. However, the teacher seemed to have seen through their thoughts. Don't mention what happened today to anyone, including your parents and friends. As your teacher, I'm used to keeping a low profile and don't want to be disturbed by outsiders. If you mention it, don't blame me for kicking you out of Year 6 Class 3. At the end, Immortal's voice revealed a trace of sternness. At the same time, Longwei instantly spread out. In the hearts of all the students, a sense of competition that seemed to come from their bones suddenly rose up. Then, they secretly made up their minds to not reveal a single word to anyone, because the teacher had never been so strict before. If they were to reveal it, with the Longwei that the teacher displayed, they were afraid that he might really kill them. A teacher killing a student was originally a big deal. But the teacher was an existence that surpassed the Star Lord, so it was a different story. Even the Star Lord couldn't do anything to him. So who would dare to punish him? And they weren't stupid. To be able to follow such a teacher as a student was something that they had cultivated for 8 lifetimes. How could they ruin this opportunity so easily? That afternoon, they returned to the academy. Along the way, the students were very respectful to Immortal and were no longer as casual as before. Even if Immortal was more easygoing and even joked with them, they didn't dare to be as casual as before. When they returned to the academy and walked on the tree-lined path in the academy, the students who passed by all covered their mouths and snickered. The students of Class 6, Class 3 naturally knew what they were laughing about. They were laughing at the students of Class 6, Class 3 for being in such a sorry state. Many of their clothes were like beggars, and their hair was dirty and messy. They didn't look like students, but like they had escaped from somewhere. Even some of the teachers were a little surprised when they saw the students of Class 6, Class 3 like this. "Teacher Emo, your class is..." Immortal waved his hand and said, "Let them go to the slums to experience life. Otherwise, if they think that they are students of Cloud Sea Academy, they will always be high and mighty and not down to earth. I'm afraid it will hurt a lot." Those teachers all gave Immortal a thumbs up. Teacher Emo is so thoughtful. Next semester, let our students experience life. When the students of those classes heard this, their faces immediately darkened. As for the students of Class 6, Class 3, although their appearance was sloppy, they were all very proud and arrogant at this moment. When the final exam was in a few days, their Class 6, Class 3 would definitely surprise everyone. Chapter 606. The dean summoned all the teachers for a meeting. When the other teachers arrived, the dean only nodded to them as a greeting. However, when Immortal arrived, the dean stood up and welcomed him. He said warmly, "Teacher Emo is here. Come and sit." This made the other teachers feel strange. The dean had always been very calm. Even in the face of a landslide, his expression would not change. Why was he so enthusiastic when he saw Teacher Emo today? Of course, they did not know that the dean had guessed that Immortal was a super-evolved dragon. As for Immortal, who was also a super-evolved dragon, the dean naturally had a higher opinion of him than the other teachers. After all the other teachers had arrived, the dean started the meeting. The content of the meeting was about the final exam. "We have chosen to hold the final exam on the nearby Cloud Ridge planet." Cloud Ridge planet was a satellite of Cloud Sea planet. It was similar to the relationship between Earth and the Moon. Cloud Ridge planet was not big, and it had not been developed before. It was completely untouched. The entire surface of Cloud Ridge planet was covered by plants. There were hundreds of millions of star beast cubs on Cloud Ridge planet. Occasionally, some schools would hold tests or exams here. The dean said, "For this final exam, every student in every class will enter Cloud Ridge planet to hunt star beast cubs. In the end, we will choose the 20 students with the highest level and the highest number of star beast cubs to participate in the 100-star competition during the summer break." The so-called 100-star competition was a competition where each planet would send out 20 of their strongest students to participate in the competition. It was held every 4 years. It was the most important competition for these planets. Logically speaking, the schools of Cloud Sea Planet should compete to choose the 20 most outstanding students. However, the Ocean of Clouds Academy had the ability to monopolize all 20 of them. Because according to the experience of previous years, the 20 spots would be taken by Cloud Sea Academy in the end. Therefore, after some discussion, they decided that there was no need to go through so much trouble to hold the internal competition of Cloud Sea Planet. That would be a waste of time and dragon power. It was better to just give all the spots to Cloud Sea Academy. The dean continued to speak and finally asked all 42 teachers, "Does anyone have any opinions or suggestions? Feel free to voice them out." The teachers all shook their heads. The dean smiled and asked Immortal, "Teacher Emo, do you have anything to say?" All the instructors were shocked once again. It seemed like the dean valued Instructor Emo a lot. What kind of background did he have? They didn't believe that Instructor Emo was that strong. To be valued by the dean, one had to be at least at the super-evolved dragon level. Could this Instructor Emo be a super-evolved dragon? What a joke. Immortal smiled and replied, "That's right. I think that if it's fair, all 20 slots will be given to us." That way, we won't have to waste time fighting for a spot. As soon as this was said, there was a moment of silence. Wasn't Instructor Mo too arrogant? Even if the dean thinks highly of you, you don't have to be so arrogant. Did he have any respect for the other instructors? This was especially true for the mentors of the graduating classes. They were all enraged. Instructor Mo, don't you think you're exaggerating? Instructor Mo, how long have you been here? You don't know the strength of the other classes. We don't blame you. But by saying such big words, you are not giving face to the other teachers of the other classes. Especially the teacher of Year 1 Class 0, Yu Yanran, who had a fiery temper. She slammed the table and stood up. Instructor Mo, don't think that just because you're leading a graduating class, the students in your class are stronger than the first years. Lei Ren from our class is strong enough to kill anyone in your class. Hehe, Emosher laughed. He sensed Lei Ren passing by the conference room. He immediately shouted, Lei Ren, come in. The conference room door was pushed open, and Lei Ren walked in. When all the instructors saw Lei Ren, they couldn't help but size him up carefully. Yu Yanran had always been high profile. Such a genius from their class could actually challenge someone who was 5 ranks higher than him in the first year. Yu Yanran naturally wanted to publicize this matter. So much so that the entire academy already knew about Lei Ren. It wouldn't be a problem for this guy to challenge those 6th years. A mentor said. Among the 20 spots, at least one of them should be Lei Ren. Yeah, he's the only one in our academy who can challenge opponents who are 5 ranks higher. I think that if it's really fair, Lei Ren should be the one who gets a spot without having to compete. Recently, there had been news about the final exam. Lei Ren had also heard some of it. Now that he heard these mentors say this, and saw that they seemed to be targeting Mo, sure, he shook his head. No. You guys think too highly of me. Instructor Mo's students are far from what I can compare to. I think the top 20 should all be in Instructor Mo's class. Just give it to them directly and save time. The other mentors were stunned when they heard this. Especially Yu Yanran, who was dumbfounded. Lei Ren was usually very arrogant in the class. Not only in the class, even in the entire academy, he wasn't afraid of the 6th years at all. After all, his strength was there. Many 6th years had to take a detour when they saw him. Why was he so afraid when he saw Emosher? Yu Yanran slapped Lei Ren. Why are you so cowardly? How is this the usual you? Lei Ren laughed dryly and said, Actually, my abilities were all taught by Instructor Mo before I entered the academy. Without him, I wouldn't be who I am today. I was just a good-for-nothing playboy before, and he could teach me like this. Most of the students in the 3rd class are geniuses. Instructor Mo has taught them for so long. Their strength must have improved by leaps and bounds. So I'm not a coward. I know my own name. By the way, Dean, can I transfer directly to Instructor Mo's class? As soon as this remark came out, everyone present looked at each other. Lei Ren was also taught by Instructor Mo? The dean and Yu Yanran had already known this. Yu Yanran snorted coldly. Lei Ren, you little traitor. Don't say that you are a student of our class in the future. Lei Ren was not afraid of Yu Yanran at all. Instead, he said directly to the dean. Dean, you see, Instructor Yu doesn't want me anymore. I'm homeless. Please be merciful and let me transfer directly to the 3rd class of the 6th year. Yu Yanran was so angry that she gritted her teeth. The dean also shook his head and smiled bitterly. Although your strength is good, you still lack various theoretical knowledge. You have to start learning from the 1st grade. And don't you live with Instructor Mo? You can learn from him after school in the afternoon. Chapter 607. Emosher said arrogantly in the meeting room that they should be given to Class 6 to 3. Of course, the dean couldn't really give them to Class 6 to 3. The participants had to be selected through the academy's final exam. Following that, every class in the academy entered a state of intense preparation. Especially the 6th grade. They had studied for nearly 60 years and had experienced all kinds of theoretical knowledge and practice many times. In addition, their average level was the highest among all the grades, so theoretically, they had the highest chance of getting a place. Therefore, their preparation work was even more intense. Their homeroom teacher basically spent the rest of his time in class these few days, other than eating and sleeping time. He told the students what to pay attention to, explained the knowledge of all kinds of star beast cubs, and explained all kinds of high-end combat techniques. The busiest classes were Class 6 to 1 and Class 6 to 2. Class 6 to 1 was an elite class, and Class 6 to 2 was not far behind. In the final exam every year, the results of these two classes were in the top 3. The teachers of these two classes were far more serious and responsible than the teachers of the other classes. They couldn't wait to eat and live with the students. In the entire academy, there was only one class. There was not the slightest bit of tension before the exam. Mosher still walked around the classroom every day and let the students prepare for the exam. When he had nothing to do, he would stay in the library and read electronic books to understand everything about the 10,000 Dragons star region. When it was time, he would get off work on time and not stay for a minute longer. Every time at 5 p.m., after he got off work and left, the other homeroom teachers would always show a trace of disdain. This kind of teacher did not have a trace of seriousness and responsibility. When teacher Jean Pontu was here, Class 6 to 3 was always first in the grade. In terms of results, discipline, and other aspects, no one could find any fault with them. But now Teacher Mo? It was said that other than allowing the students to rise by one level, he was practically useless in other aspects. He couldn't teach theoretical knowledge, and he didn't know about the various skills. He came to the academy as a complete loser. He even said that all the spots should be given to his class. What a joke! If they were given to his class, it would be the biggest joke. Just like that, 3 days passed in the blink of an eye. 3 days later, more than 800 students in the academy boarded a giant ship that was more than 10,000 meters long and flew to Cloud Billow Star. The other academies didn't have such a giant ship. In the entire Cloud Sea Star, only the Cloud Sea Academy had a single one. Even though it was a 10,000-meter long giant ship, it was still extremely fast. In just over half an hour, they arrived at the Cloud Ridge Star. The captain chose a slightly flatter place and stopped. Then he set up a protective shield within a radius of 50 kilometers. In this way, the area within a radius of 50 kilometers around the giant ship was an absolute safe zone. Everyone can rest and exercise here. However, for these students, there was no opportunity to move at all. As soon as the giant ship landed, it meant that the examination had begun. They had to make the best use of their time and kill as many star beasts as possible within 3 days. Every student was equipped with a tracking device and a camera. If they were in danger, the academy's instructors could quickly rush to their location. Every teacher returned to their own rooms and watched their students in front of the monitor. At the same time, there was a huge screen in the control room. On it were real-time images taken by the cameras carried by all the students. If any student was in danger, the computer would immediately analyze it, and then magnify the image of the student in danger and display it. Mosher scanned with his dragon's will. Within a radius of 1,000 kilometers, there weren't any strong star beasts. The strongest one was only 170 years old, which was equivalent to a rank 7 evolved giant dragon. For his students, any one of them could take on these star beasts alone. Only Tuching was able to do so, because Mosher had been teaching him how to comprehend the formation of a planet, and hadn't taught him any skills. However, he was able to use Mount Tai's crushing down every time. Therefore, he seemed to be in a sorry state. When he encountered a star beast cub, he would often fight it with his bare hands. Moreover, he didn't use any moves or skills. It was completely a tortoise's fist. However, because he had a planet body, he was extremely strong. When facing a star beast cub that was 3 or 5 levels higher than him, he only needed one punch to knock it to the ground. As the screen was divided into 800 small panels, it displayed the images of 800 students. Therefore, the dean and the others hadn't noticed this yet. At this moment, Mosher didn't pay attention to this. Instead, he carried a pot of tea and went to the top of the giant ship. He sat on the deck, enjoying the breeze, drinking tea, and admiring the scenery of Cloud Ridge Planet. The biggest characteristic of this place was one word: green. Looking around, the entire surface was covered in green plants. The air was naturally fresh. If there weren't outsiders, he would have let them out to enjoy the beautiful scenery together. At the same time, in the main control room, after the dean and the leaders of the academies confirmed that everything was on track, they said, "Show me the images of the students of class 6 to 3. Others didn't know, but he knew. Instructor Mo of class 6 to 3 was a super evolved giant dragon. Since he dared to say that all the slots should belong to class 6 to 3, there must be something special about him. Soon, the 20 students of class 6 to 3 were magnified and displayed on the big screen. When all the instructors saw the students of class 6 to 3 on the big screen, they all sucked in a breath of cold air. The golden sword was an extremely sharp energy sword. Wherever it passed, it was basically insta-killed. A 110-year star beast cub, insta-killed. A 150-year star beast cub, insta-killed. A 170-year star beast cub, insta-killed. It wasn't just the golden sword. The other students might not be able to insta-kill them, but it was very easy for them to deal with these star beast cubs. All kinds of moves and skills emerged one after another. It was dazzling. Moreover, the recruitment of these students basically didn't have any fancy moves. They were usually the simplest and most practical. Compared to the students of class 6 to 3, the other students were like a group of babies who had just learned to walk. In class 6 to 3, the only student who looked to be in a sorry state was Earth City. However, the instructors didn't have much hope for him. He was famous for being at the bottom of the rankings in the academy. Since the first year, he hadn't advanced by one rank and hadn't learned a skill of the corresponding rank. However, just as they casually scanned the image of Earth City, their gazes froze. The casual expressions on their faces turned into extreme shock. Chapter 608. When the mentor's eyes casually scanned through the image of Earth City, they were all suddenly nailed to the frame of Earth City. The dean's eyes were also fixed on the image of Earth City. Then he hurriedly said, "Zoom in, zoom in, zoom in on this student." Soon the image of Earth City appeared in the center of the screen, completely covering the other images. On the screen, Earth City was in a sorry state. There were no skills or energy weapons. When a pangolin rampaged, breaking dozens of giant trees and pouncing towards him, Chufeng was stunned. He looked left and right, but couldn't find any place to hide. Left with no other choice, he could only awkwardly leap high into the air. When the pangolin beast came under him, he directly used his fist to smash the pangolin beast's head that was as big as a small mountain. Bang! The pangolin's huge head was suddenly smashed to the ground. Boom! The ground below had sunk more than 10 meters deep. It formed a huge pit with a radius of about 5 kilometers. At the same time, poof! The pangolin's head directly exploded. Blood splattered everywhere. The entire huge pit was suddenly covered with thick and sticky flesh and brain matter. All the mentors who saw this scene were so shocked that they couldn't say a word for a long time. Until a moment later, a mentor opened his mouth and said, "This is too strong. Just relying on physical strength, he can kill a pangolin that is 5 levels higher. This guy is too strong." The pangolin's body is very hard. It can often easily smash through a mountain. Its head is also very hard. Often many evolved giant dragons use energy weapons to form weapons, but it is difficult to penetrate the scales on its head. But this Earth City blew it up with one punch. TSK, this guy is really too shocking. At this time, Earth City in the image jumped out of the huge pit of flesh and blood. His whole body was blood red. Maybe it was the smell of blood that attracted other star beast cubs. Soon, another hammerhead beast ran over. This was also a strength type and defense type star beast cub. Earth City seemed to be chased to the point where he couldn't hide. And because the hammerhead beast was too fast, he didn't even have the chance to jump up this time. He could only turn back, bite the bullet, and extend his right fist. With his bare fists, he directly collided with the hammerhead beast's huge head. The hammerhead beast's head was about 100 meters tall and 500 meters wide. With his human body, it looked like a mosquito trying to hold up the head of an elephant. However, under such circumstances, the The hammerhead beast was blasted more than 10 kilometers away by his attack. After landing on the ground, his head, which was almost invulnerable, actually cracked inch by inch. In the next moment, it exploded. One had to know that this hammerhead beast had reached 170 years of age, which was equivalent to a rank 7 giant dragon. In other words, Earth City crossed the 6th order punch and killed the hammerhead beast. This was simply too shocking. Apart from the dean, all the other instructors present were filled with shock. None of these instructors could defeat an enemy that was 6 levels higher than them. It was impossible for him to even take a single blow head-on, let alone kill him with a single blow. Next, they saw that in just half an hour, this guy basically circled one small beast at a time. It was simply unstoppable. It's hard to imagine how Earth City can become so strong. Previously, he had always been at the bottom of the 6th years. Now he is like the first echelon of the 6th years. He, Golden Sword, Kongming, and the others are the top of the 6th years. Yes, I think so. Actually, they did not know that Earth City was not in the first echelon. Instead, he was the strongest existence among all the 6th years. An existence that could instantly kill hundreds of dragon bandits. Obviously, Earth City only changed like this after Instructor Mo took over. In the past 50 years, he has never displayed such strength. His strength has not changed at all for more than 50 years. Instructor Mo has only taken over for half a semester. And he has gone from the bottom of the entire academy to the first echelon in one fell swoop. This is simply inconceivable. Not only him, all the other students in class 63 are ridiculously strong. They are more than 10 times stronger than when Instructor Jean was leading them. Everyone can fight 2 or 3 levels higher or even 3 or 4 levels higher. It's simply terrifying. Now I'm beginning to believe what Instructor Mo said before. At this moment, what the dean was thinking about was the planetary body that Mo sure had mentioned before. He naturally knew about the planetary body. The planetary body was very strong, but it required time to comprehend. But it took too much time to comprehend. Often, dragons with planetary bodies would die of old age before they could comprehend anything. Only 1 in 10,000 could truly achieve a planetary body. That would require thousands or even tens of thousands of years to comprehend. But after Mo sure took over class 63, it had only been 3 months, and Earth City had already reached such a powerful level of strength. How did he do it? After the dean heard Mo sure say that Earth City was a planetary body, he was thinking about how to provide better conditions for Earth City, and how to think of a better way for him to comprehend. But in the past 3 months, he could not think of any substantial help. But he did not expect that in just 3 months, Mo sure would help Earth City become so powerful. From the looks of it, he was probably invincible below the super-evolved dragon. This made him even more surprised by Mo sure. How did he do it? He used his perception to investigate. At this moment, Mo sure was leisurely drinking tea on the deck. The other instructors were in their respective rooms, nervously staring at the screen. Comparing the two, it was obvious who was better. Soon it was the second day. The instructors of the academy all came to the main control room early the next morning, because they wanted to see the results of the other students. Especially the instructors of class 61 and class 62. Their hearts were filled with excitement, and their footsteps were exceptionally light. The results of the students in their 2 classes were very outstanding. Basically, every student had killed at least 10 star beast cubs. According to the historical exam results, being able to kill so many star beast cubs on the first day was already very good. However, when they came to the central control room, they saw that the big screen did not show the other students. Only 20 students were shown. They were all students of class 63. Earth City, 57, Golden Sword, 55, Ice Beauty, 53, Shui Bolan, 49, Mu Wanqing, 48, Kongming, 48. The student with the least number had reached 39. The best student had 15 more than the students in their 2 classes. This caused the 2 instructors of class 61 and class 62 to be stunned. At this moment, the conversation of a few leaders could be heard. They killed too quickly. There were not many star beast cubs around for them to kill, so they could only look around. That's right. They wasted all their time on traveling and searching for star beast cubs. Otherwise, I'm afraid that each of them would have killed over 100 star beasts today. The two instructors of Class 61 and Class 62 were petrified. Chapter 609. When the teacher in charge of Class 6-1 and Class 6-2 heard the words of the leaders, they were petrified. Class 6-3 was too much of a beast, right? How could their combat power be so strong? Could it be that they were only killing low-level star beasts? Thinking of this, there was still a glimmer of hope in their hearts. Then they continued to walk inside. When they came to the front of the big screen and saw the performance of the students on the screen, the two of them were petrified again. On the big screen, most of the students in Class 6-3 were on their way to find star beast cubs. There were only 4 of them. One of them was Golden Sword, and the other was Tuching. Golden Sword condensed a golden sword aura in his right hand, and instantly swept past the side of a 170-year-old star beast cub. Hiss! The star beast cub's head was directly cut in half. It was killed on the spot. Tuching was even more direct. Facing a 150-year-old star beast cub, he actually used his fist to fight against the star beast cub's teeth. When the star beast cub opened its huge mouth and bit down on him, he punched out. Crack! The star beast cub's sharp teeth were directly broken. At the same time, this punch also exploded the star beast cub's entire head. Hiss! When the teacher in charge of Class 6-1 and Class 6-2 saw this, both of them gasped in shock. Most of the students in their 2 classes would probably take a detour when facing a 150-year-old star beast cub. Even if there was someone who could defeat a 150-year-old star beast cub, it would take a while. Who would be like this guy, exploding it with one punch? He was simply an animal. The dean next to them was still smiling and asking, "Teachers, what do you think of this guy?" The teacher in charge of Class 6-1 and Class 6-2 looked at each other and could only smile awkwardly. Very strong. To be able to kill a 150-year-old star beast cub with his bare hands, he is indeed very strong. The dean laughed out loud. You didn't see the scene of him killing a 170-year-old star beast cub with one punch. The 2 teachers were petrified on the spot for the 3rd time. In their 2 classes, none of them could kill a 170-year-old star beast cub. This guy killed it with one punch? Is this for real? At this moment, the dean gave them another heavy blow. Oh, it's not just him. That golden sword, Shui Bolan, and Ice Beauty basically killed all the 170-year-old star beasts they encountered. The 2 instructors were numb. You look at me, I look at you. Finally, they looked at the dean at the same time. Then what about the others? The president shook his head. Only then did the 2 instructors' expressions look a little better. The headmaster continued. The others haven't encountered a 170-year-old astral beast cub yet. We only saw them instantly kill a 160-year-old star beast cub. Poof poof. Invisibly, 2 sounds of blood spurting could be heard. If he could instantly kill a 170-year-old, then even if he couldn't instantly kill a 160-year-old, it shouldn't be a problem. This completely destroyed their last bit of hope. That instructor Mo. How exactly does he teach his students? The instructor of Class 6-1 said subconsciously. The dean said, I really don't know about that. But take a look at Lei Ren from Class 0. As the dean spoke, he asked the instructor beside him to bring up Lei Ren's image. Lei Renjung encountered a 160-year-old star beast cub. His right arm transformed into a dragon claw with lightning coiling around its tip. In the next moment, he passed by the 160-year-old star beast cub. Rip! The 200-meter-long body of the 160-year-old astral beast cub was instantly torn in half. There wasn't even a trace of self-recovery. When the instructors of Class 6-1 and Class 6-2 saw this, they revealed looks of admiration. Lei Ren is a genius. It's not surprising that he can kill a level 160 astral beast cub. The dean smiled. Lei Ren was also taught by instructor Mo. When the instructors of Class 6 to 1 and Class 6 to 2 heard this, their eyes dimmed. The dean continued. And according to my understanding, before Lei Ren came to our academy, although he was taught in our academy, but in reality, he wasn't very strong. He was known as the #1 spoiled brat within 1,000 kilometers. You can imagine how weak his combat strength is. Later, when school started, he took a half-semester leave. In fact, it was instructor Mo who brought him to special training. After the special training, Lei Ren reached the point where he could fight someone 5 grades above him. Also, according to instructor Yu, this isn't Lei Ren's full strength. If Lei Ren used his full strength, he might be able to reach the level of a super-evolved dragon. When they heard the dean's words, it wasn't just the instructors of Class 6 to 1 and Class 6 to 2. All the higher-ups of the academy sucked in a breath of cold air. In other words, a level 2 evolved dragon could defeat a level 10 evolved dragon? Other than the dean, all the instructors weren't as strong as Lei Ren? How did instructor Mo teach his students? This was simply like turning stone into gold. Moreover, to be able to bring Earth City, the last place, to such a state, was completely turning something rotten into something miraculous. This was simply too inconceivable. Actually, they didn't know that with Lei Ren's current strength, it was impossible for him to defeat a level 10 evolved dragon. That was just an exaggeration that had been passed around. Lei Ren's true strength was only able to fight someone 5 grades above him. If he could truly master the second transformation of the Thunder Dragon 9 transformations, then he would truly be invincible under the super-evolved dragon. However, these instructors were already shocked. Dean, after instructor Jean left, we randomly found someone to replace him. I didn't expect to find a god-level instructor. The dean also sighed. I didn't expect it either. As he spoke, his consciousness probed out again. He found that Mo sure had actually fallen asleep while leaning against the back of the chair, and his shiny saliva was flowing down. What kind of dragon was this? Originally, if it continued like this, there would be no problem for Class 6 to 3 to take the top 20 places. But on the last day of the exam, there was still a problem. On the big screen, a student from Class 5 to 5 who was hunting star beasts suddenly disappeared. The screen was filled with snowflakes. The tracker also failed. Their instructors hurriedly chased him to the location where he disappeared, but they couldn't find any clues. Then a student from Class 5 to 2 also disappeared. Then Class 6 to 1. Seeing this, the dean hurriedly ordered the instructors to order the students to withdraw immediately. However, after their orders were issued, they didn't receive any response. Then, all the screens turned into snowflakes. All the students couldn't be contacted. Those instructors hurriedly searched everywhere. In the end, only 630 of the 800 students were found. There were still 170 students who were completely uncontactable. This included the 20 people from Class 6 to 3. The atmosphere in the entire academy suddenly became tense. After the dean counted all the students with a calm face, he found that the other classes had lost contact with a few students. And Class 6 to 3 had lost contact with the entire class. This caused everyone to be extremely surprised. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.